Good. How am I coming through?
You're coming through loud and clear.
All right, perfect. I'm a bit of a boomer, Discord/Twitch, so
That's okay.
yeah. If you want, I
we
can
all
give
are
you a
these
little
days.
bit. I can give you a little bit about who the hell I am and what I want to talk to you about, and see if you're interested.
Go for it.
I'm a little bit more than a Michael Brooks caller.
Okay, that's the only thing people say when they talk about you. So I don't know if that's like what you're most known for, or what, or if it's a
No,
meme, or
no,
what.
no, no. Yeah. I did work on Majority Report as a producer.
Okay.
But my primary work is with as a political campaign worker. I do like I was a campaign manager, political director. I was a finance director for progressive campaigns.
Okay.
I also did policy, so we could discuss progressive policy on a little bit more sophisticated level with empirical data if you want. We could talk about whatever issue. I was hoping to talk to you though a little bit about like what you think of the moderate voter is, and if you could describe like what a moderate voter is in your mind. Who are the like different categories of voters that we're trying to win over as like the Democratic Party? What went wrong in 2016? And so the reason why I want all this is just so I know where your head's at, so we can talk about 2020 and the electability question of Bernie Sanders, because I think tell me if I'm mischaracterizing your position. You like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders because they're going to move the Overton window left, but you are concerned that they might be unelectable because they're too far left.
Kind of. Yeah. I guess that's probably fair. Yeah.
And so I want to totally end your concerns about them being too far left.
Okay.
And I'll if you want, I can show you. There's a study that I like because it has a lot of graphs and illustrations that make this very clear, and it's not just a lump of text.
Okay.
Would you like that?
Sure. Shoot it forward.
Yeah. I'll send it over to you so you can put it on your stream here. Let me grab that, and I'll pull it up on mine as well. It's from the Democracy Fund, and let me send that. Also, everybody, why I do that? I just DM'd it to you. Go ahead, if you would like, you can go over to my shitty stream. It's not very well configured. I've been streaming for like 3 days. Over on Central_Committee. Follow me, Mike from PA, on Twitter. All right, there you go.
Okay.
So this is basically one of the most comprehensive studies of the electorate from 2016, right? And it talked about the ideology, and I probably need to mute my notifications because that's gonna spam. Most likely. But yeah, but anyway, fuck it. This was the most comprehensive study of the electorate. And it talked to people about their vote, and then it talked to them about like their political beliefs on a different axis of ideology, and then it also talked to them about their vote in 2012. So you can see like the people who went from Obama Trump, Obama other, etc. And we can kind of look and see why Hillary Clinton lost. First of all, what's the political composition of the electorate, number one, and number two, who shifted from Obama to Trump that caused that victory for Donald Trump. And so largely, I think you think that people that are moderates are moderate on economics and kind of like moderate or left on social issues. Would you characterize that as like your view?
Can you restate that? That people that are moderate are
they're moderate economically, so they might be skeptical of that $15 minimum wage, for example, but they're like kind of socially liberal, so like kind of that libertarian-esque vote, the moderate Republican. That's kind of the people that are moderate voters overall, and moderate Democrats as well.
Sure, maybe, yeah, I guess, sure.
So, and I think that's just totally wrong, and I understand why you have that view, because that's the view that's put out in the mainstream media. And that's actually not just put out in the mainstream media. There's leaders of the Democratic Party that say this stuff. For example, Chuck Schumer famously said in 2016, and I think it was July 2016, chat, feel free to Google this. And I'm trying to get the quote as accurate as I can. As he said, "For every blue-collar worker we lose in Western Pennsylvania, we're going to pick up 2 moderate Republicans in the Philadelphia suburbs. Have you ever heard that quote?
No, and that sounds really stupid because they sound like there's a lot of overlap between these two bases, but
So, that is really stupid, and it is something that Chuck Schumer said, and that was, in a nutshell, the Hillary Clinton strategy, right? Which was pursue those moderate Republicans by showing you how disgusting Trump is, and kind of like get people to go after Trump, just reject him because of his like personality, the negative things about his history, just the way he comes off as a bully. Hey, Donald Trump is disgusting, that kind of stuff, and it totally failed. Right?
okay.
And now we're going to talk about why. Now, if you scroll down to, and I encourage you to read this like on your stream or off stream, just so you can get where I think progressives that have an empirical view, those of us who are in the game and are trying to get these candidates elected, as opposed to people who are just watching politics as entertainment and who like Bernie, but they don't know why he can win. They just want him to win. I'll show you how he's going to win.
Sure.
Have you ever? Yeah, sure. Shut me up anytime if you think I'm talking too much.
Can you talk to your audience for like 5 minutes? And I'm just going to read this, okay? Just so I have a good...
Yeah. That's fine.
Okay, all right. Or go. You can talk to my people too. I'm just going to be reading this for a second, okay?
Yeah. I'll keep talking. So guys, this study doesn't necessarily, the authors don't necessarily agree with me on every point I'm going to make, but I'm going to use their arguments that they've collected, the indexes, and the thing that I would want to draw us to primarily is I need to recenter Destiny on who the persuadable voters are, right? And why Bernie Sanders is the best candidate for those persuadable voters, and why Joe Biden is the worst. And to a lesser extent, I think Elizabeth Warren could also appeal to these voters, but I think she would be riskier for a bunch of other reasons that are not as well grounded empirically. But I think if it kind of strikes me as true, but that's not really good enough for what we're trying to do here today. So I'm going to focus more on what's empirically well-founded. So the main thing here is what I want you guys to look at is this 2016 electorate, right? The 2016 electorate. And let me pull up my chat, see if everybody is rolling here. Hey everybody. Remember, Central Committee, hit the follow button. Hit the motherfucking follow button. Like, let's go. What you're going to see here is these 4 quadrants. This is kind of a political compass, right? So on the y-axis here, you have the social liberalism, social conservatism. One is very socially conservative. And on the x-axis here, you have economic liberalism versus or left-wing economic division and conservatives on economics. And every voter that they talked to, they evaluated their political ideology, right? And they plotted it. And the color dot is who that person voted for in 2016, right? So what you'll see right here is on the economic far right, like basically the orthodoxy of the Tea Party, there is basically no voters here. Almost nobody is economically far right. The other thing you'll probably notice is that this libertarian section, that's that economically conservative and socially liberal, is almost empty. I mean, there are some dots here. It's not completely empty, but they're tiny. Like, if you compare that to the other 3 quadrants, there's almost no one here. And this is the group of voters that those, what we would call corporate Democrats or establishment Democrats want you to focus on, those moderate Republicans that they're always chasing. Like, that's this group. And there's almost nobody here. And believe it or not, they divided evenly between third parties, Trump and Clinton. So this is an empty well, but they keep trying to drill it. And then here's the most shocking thing, right? This is the populist. So this is the liberal segment. Let's not skip over this. So this is conservative again, libertarian. This is liberal. And then this is the populist segment. So what is populist according to the authors of this study? These are economically liberal or economically left and socially conservative. So these are the these are the voters who, who are, say, old union guys, and they are disproportionately concentrated where? You guessed it, the Rust Belt states. And the Rust Belt states are why Donald Trump won the election. okay? And so what you'll notice here is that, by the way, the Democratic Party is very economically left. Like, the vast majority of Democratic Party voters are very left economically. And then what you see here is there's actually people who are pegged far left economically, but they voted for Donald fucking Trump because they're more socially conservative or because of some other reason. And this is the category of voters that is most interesting to me. And there's another category of voters, which is the people who went, and and if you look in this, you'll see a lot of yellow dots, and those are people who voted third party, right? And so what you'll see here, fundamentally, is that the electorate is divided. Not the moderates don't exist here. In fact, when someone uses the word moderate, what they mean is someone who votes both sometimes for the Democrats and sometimes for the Republicans. What it does not mean is you look at the political spectrum and they're moderate. That's not true. And what you'll find is when you look, so are we all in agreement? Are we all in agreement that most voters are not, like the moderates, as far as fiscally conservative and socially liberal, it doesn't exist, or it exists to such a small extent that it's not relevant to the election's outcome? So let's go look at ideology and vote choice. And here is that. So reminder, guys, 4 categories. Liberal, that was 44.6% of the electorate. Populist, 28.9% of the electorate. Conservative, 22.7%, and libertarian, 3.8%, right? And the reason why Hillary lost is she was targeting that 3.8% and didn't even win it. And Donald Trump was targeting that 28% and he won it 3-1. So that's why Trump won, okay? Hillary Clinton's strategy, and by the way, even if she got every liberal and every libertarian, she would have lost. That's not enough. And so let's look at the vote choice here, right? So this is by size of the vote share. So the liberal is the largest group. And by the way, did you realize that 44.6% of people are left on economics and left on social issues? That they're by far the largest group? Did you realize that? Did you know that? You probably didn't, because you've been told this is a center-right country. Isn't that weird? But this is just facts, baby. This is the evidence. Isn't that weird? So you've been misled. Why is that? We'll get to that later when Destiny comes back. So look at these liberals, right? Look at these liberals. Thanks for all the follows, guys. Central Committee on Twitch, twitch.tv/central_committee. Come on over. This is the winning side of the debate. Come on. I'm just fucking with you guys. I'm just fucking with you. Destiny's reading. I'm just memeing here. I'm sure he's gonna have some good objections and thoughts. I can't wait for him. So anyway, so look at these liberals. So Hillary Clinton got 36.8%, 85% of the vote share that went for Clinton was in the liberal section. 4.5 of people are, and by the way, when they say liberal, that's just the shorthand. It doesn't mean they're liberals. They could be socialists too. But a socialist would be pegged on that far left, right? All right, so 4.56% of those liberals went to other. That's a big problem. That's the people voting Green Party. That's the people voting for Gary Johnson. That's the people writing in Bernie Sanders. That's the people leaving it blank, right? Then you have populist vote share, right? And this is where Hillary Clinton got annihilated and where the biggest shift was. Now, Donald Trump won at 3-1. Donald Trump won at 3-1. These are those old guys, the blue collar workers of Western Pennsylvania that Chuck Schumer said wasn't that important, right? We'll get those moderate Republicans in the suburbs, 2 of them for every blue collar worker that we lose in Pittsburgh. Well, how did that work out for you? Didn't work out very well. And then you look at the conservatives. Hillary Clinton got 0.39% of the electorate that identifies themselves as conservative. Yikes, arena. Not of the electorate. So let me put it to I misspoke. 0.39% of the electorate called them, rated as conservative during the test and said they voted for Hillary Clinton. And the libertarian, it's basically even. Hillary got 1.04. Trump slightly won them. So even among those people she was targeting, she lost to Trump, but it was so narrow as to be statistically insignificant, right? So let's go. Let's go down and see. Now let's go to the most interesting part. And this is why, and we're going to get to why Bernie Sanders is going to win when Destiny gets back. But I want to educate. So while you guys are reading, I'm going to read it to you so you know what I'm saying. So when Destiny says some bullshit, you can call him out. All right. So look at this ideology and vote chip. So here's the Obama Clinton voters, right? These are the people who voted for Obama and then voted for Clinton. Well, as you can see, she pretty much crushed the liberals, right? And there were some of those populists there. Basically, no conservatives were in the Obama Clinton category, which makes sense. That's a good sanity check, right? And then you have the libertarian. Some of the people that are in the libertarian camp voted for Clinton. So there's her vote share. Then here are the two buckets of voters that Clinton didn't get that Obama did. We have the Obama others and the Obama Trump. So who are in the Obama others? The Obama others are mostly those are like the Bernie or busters, right? The Green Party voters, the people who were just couldn't make themselves vote for Clinton. That was a mistake, right? I consider myself a suck dem who is a social democratic socialist curious, right? And so people like me who didn't vote very strategically, right? That's them. And that's mostly liberals in that category. So in the bottom left. And then we have the Obama-Trump category, right? These are the people who flipped Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, made Ohio a blowout, made Florida a blowout, made Iowa as blowout, right? Almost lost Minnesota, right? That is lost Wisconsin. That's where these two categories right here. And then there's the Romney Clinton, right? Those are those moderate Republican women who were going to be offended by Trump, right? As you can see, if you compare the size of the bar graph, it's a half or a third the size of these other two. Even one of these categories, which are both vital. Look at this. Horrible. And then Romney other. This is some people who were disgusted by Trump and they just couldn't make themselves vote for Clinton, so they canceled out their vote, right? They didn't end up mattering. But here's the rub of what I'm arguing here is the Obama Trump vote. Those are that's what crushed Hillary, right? And yeah, not good. And so what did those people look like? Like what are their viewpoints? And how did Trump win them over? And why is Bernie Sanders the candidate that best fits them? Oh, and by the way, and we'll talk about how this graph talks about what their views were on a bunch of different issues, which will put these people on the political spectrum, right? So what were the questions asked, and how are they placed on that political spectrum? So, Nate, as far as like Bernie and Warren and Biden in the national polls right now, here's what I would tell you. National polls don't matter. That's not how we pick a nominee.
Okay. So just to let you know,
buddy?
I'm done now. I'm here. What's up?
Okay. So do you see where I'm going with this? Or are you still
I mean, I think I do.
right.
It seems like the general argument you're going to make from this data is that the kind of the disenfranchised populist, economically left but socially right voters that went from Obama to Trump are more likely to be brought back into the fold under a Bernie Sanders than a Biden.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's largely the point. Also, but that's only one bucket of the electability argument, because so there are four categories of voters we need, right? Like when we're approaching how are we going to win an election, like we look at these different groups, right? So we have our base voters. Those are those Obama Clinton voters. We've got to keep those. Then we have three other persuadable groups, right? You have the Obama Trump voter, you have the Obama other voter, and then you have the non-voter. So which candidate is going to be best able of activating those three buckets and moving as much of the votes back to the Democratic Party as possible? And I would argue that in every single one of those buckets, Bernie's the best choice. And we can go through this exactly. And did you look at the share, like the distribution of the electorate, like the ideology? Did you find that interesting? I kind of read the study to the chats as we were going, so they can understand what I was doing.
I mean, I think it kind of lines up generally with most of what I'm kind of familiar with. I think that like
is that right? Because you said that you thought they were economically moderate. in the beginning. That's the
Well,
only reason why.
I guess I don't know what you mean when you say economically moderate. I'm sorry. I've dealt with so many socialists over the
Oh,
past
no,
few
no, no, no.
days that like people call me right wing if I'm like saying like Hillary Clinton's policies are okay. So I'm not sure 100% when you say economically moderate.
What I
But
mean
like,
by that is that they were happy that Hillary Clinton didn't want to do a $15 minimum wage, but she only wanted to do 12.50. You know, like that was the
oh
voter.
sure,
That
yeah,
was a
I'm not
moderate to
sure.
you, right?
Possibly. But like one
Right.
of the things that we've talked about a lot, because the first instance, for instance, I interacted with Hassan was talking to him about his debate with Charlie Kirk. Is that like you see this emergence of new age Republicans that aren't actually like big pro corporation, big pro businesses or whatever. That these
Right.
people actually start to resemble a lot more populist talking points than
Right.
kind of like the traditional big business Republicans of old. And if you try to debate somebody like a Charlie Kirk and you open with like, well, these big businesses are destroying America, a lot of these Republicans will disagree with you. They'll be like, oh, absolutely, they are.
Well,
And you'll be like,
that's
oh shit, like what's going on?
yeah,
Yeah.
but that is the political innovation of Trump. That's why he won. Because he was the first person to really run that lane in the Republican Party. And if you look at the chart, if you go to let me show you which figure. If you look at figure 3, you actually see that the ideology that the populist voting bloc is bigger than the conservative voting bloc, aka economically left but socially right, has more people in it than economically right, socially right. So somebody who comes in there and says, I'm not going to touch Social Security and Medicare, which is what Trump campaigned on, even though it turned out to be a lie, right? He said we're going to get health care that covers everyone. Remember that? Do you remember that? That was what he
When
was.
Trump said that?
Trump said that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he said that. I remember like repeal and replace has been like a big Republican talking point for
No,
fucking
that
ever.
was the unsuccessful People's campaign.
Okay.
We can pull it up if
Sure.
one of your
I remember
mods.
I followed all of the Trump stuff like pretty religiously. I don't remember him making as strong a stance on like healthcare related stuff.
He believe
Most
it or
of it
not,
seemed yeah.
believe it or not, here it goes. Here you go. I got a Washington Post article. I'm gonna. Oh fuck! I don't pay for it. God damn it. So, let me see if I can copy this link. Here, I'll send it over to you. And feel free to correct me on anything. But I feel like I'm not trying to bust you too much, but I think you did slide a little bit. Like you went from Bernie's too extreme economically, right? So that's why we can't nominate him. And now it's like, oh, now that I see your evidence, clearly populists are economically left. And those are the actual swing voters.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So I've already persuaded you. I've already done
no.
like half of what I'm doing.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. I'll give this 100% of my attention. Okay. So the past like 2 weeks, like the average Bernie voter that I've interacted with has literally come and tried to like shove socialism down like voters' throats. And anybody that is opposed to socialism is a right winger. So like the moderate position ends up being like this very strange, like even left of like a suck them. So as somebody that like spends a lot of time on like the Michael Brooks show or in that community, when you ask me like what is a moderate, I'm not necessarily 100% sure how you're using that term. So I mean, I'm more confident. Sure. Usually when we talk about these
the
positions,
way that it's discussed in like mainstream media parlance, right? Like
okay,
and
sure.
I hope
you
understand.
Wait.
What
you
one
generally.
thing. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go
Okay.
ahead. I was just gonna say I'm not
generally when. Okay,
I'm not a Bernie Sanders fan. I'm a professional campaigner, and I know what I'm talking about. Like, so yeah, I'm sure you had a lot of dumb people on Twitter. Like, that's a problem with Bernie Sanders.
I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say that you're dumb, but it's when somebody that is coming from this realm is asking me like if I think most people are moderate, like that. I've heard this word used like so many times. So I mean, like, I'll kind of say like, sure, I think most people are kind of moderate and that they're not like pro-socialist. But I mean, obviously this can mean like different things to different people. Generally, when we talk about like specific things, I'm usually looking at like more specific policy points because I think it's kind of hard to just say like, is somebody like economically moderate or not? Because this, even on a like per policy position, like this can mean like different things for different policy points.
I have a question for you.
It.
What percentage of Republicans do you think want to raise the minimum wage? If you had to guess.
What percentage of Republicans want to raise the minimum wage if I had to guess? If I had to guess,
do you know?
I would say
maybe you know. If you know,
I don't know 100%. If I guess, I would probably say 60 to 65% would be a guess.
That's a good guess. It's 70.
Okay, sure, 70%.
So
okay,
now is that part of the Republican Party platform?
Generally no.
So why is there a disconnect between the Republican Party voters and what their elected representative support, right? So we have this disconnect where the voters are to the left. And if you look at this chart, so let's look at and this is why I gave this, because it has so many visuals, so it's so much easier to talk about on stream, because I know that that's what you want. If you look at the 2016 electorate, right? That's figure 2. What you'll see here is even the Republican Party voters are clustered kind of in the middle economically. There's almost nobody in the far right. Like the people who want to privatize Social Security and Medicare, even though that's part of the Republican Party like platform and something Paul Ryan was putting budget after budget after budget on.
Well, okay, sure, okay. Well,
the voters aren't there.
So if we're gonna be really specific, I'm gonna be real specific. That's never been like from my knowledge of the past 10 years, privatizing Social Security or whatever has never been like a big part of the Republican platform. People like Ryan, it seems to me, are more fringe positions of this. But
so that's not true, actually. And I'll give you a historical. One of the things that Bush failed horribly on is he tried to do a privatized Social Security plan, and he was utterly rejected. So it was actually
who?
George W. Bush. So it's a little bit going back. I'm a little bit older than you. I'm in my 30s
but Bush
as well.
is fine. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
But he tried to advance privatization plan for Social Security, and he lost. It got rejected because it's electoral poison, and it's something we'll talk about later. But that's something. That's not.
But I don't know if that's your point or my point. Like, it seems like I don't think Republicans have ever en masse supported like a privatization of Social Security.
Question: do you mean Republican voters or Republican Party elites?
Republican voters, and I don't know if it's been a big part of like any Republican like platform. So like people running for like the Senate or the House, or people that are running for president. But
no. It's okay. So this is a little bit more of a sophisticated argument, but that's not something they campaign on because it's very unpopular. But it's part of, like, have you heard about like the Pete Peterson Foundation and like the Simpson Bowles Commission and like the idea that we have these unfunded liabilities and that they're going to bankrupt America if we don't?
Yeah, people always complain it's like some austerity bullshit, but basically the idea that like
those are all false. Those are all garbage, right? You understand that those are garbage arguments and not true. We can really get into Social Security, Medicare. The only reason, and this is a diversion. It's not what we religious. What I'm trying to say. What the point I'm trying to say here is. The Republican Party voters are not actually that right economically. They actually do cluster more around that more moderate view, at least according to this study's questions, and we can deal with that. And the problem.
Sure, and then can we be, just so we're like super clear, when you say not that far right economically, what do you mean by that?
What do I mean by that? I mean like they don't want to abolish the minimum wage. They don't want to repeal. Let's see some of these things. They don't want to increase. They're concerned about economic inequality, right? They think we should raise taxes on the wealthy, and they don't think that and the distribution of money and wealth in the country. Those are the questions that was talked about. And if you ask Republicans, like one of the things that happened recently was Warren came out with this tax the wealth plan, a wealth tax, right?
The wealth tax, yeah.
And it was polled. And do you remember how it was polled? It polled very well across the political spectrum.
Okay.
That's not part of the Republican Party platform. Every Republican politician would fight that tooth and nail, and some Democratic politicians would. But yet, the mass of the people and Republican Party voters say they support a wealth tax for money over $50 million. So, like, what I'm trying to say is that the electorate is much to the left of where the political conversation and the economic policy that we have. Does that track with what you know?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Sure.
So like the main problem that like when people say that Joe Biden is a better candidate because he's more moderate economically, actually that is a disaster for him. That's going to demotivate those 3 buckets we talked about earlier to vote. Like non-voters are not going to come out and vote because he doesn't want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, right? They're not going to be excited about that. If they're checked out of the political program, right, or politics right now, that's not going to entice them back. We both agree there, right?
That if he's not in favor of like very left positions, that he's not going to motivate the very left people to come out and vote.
So like the population of people who don't vote actually tend to be more left. And there is so much political science data behind this. I can send you a couple things on it if you want, so you can read. But one of them is like when mandatory voting was put in some Swiss cantons. This is a political science thing. That increase the vote share of left-wing parties by 15%. So the people who are, and what we see in America is, in the party, for example, we have different scoring that we put on every person, every voter.
Okay.
And I'm not really revealing super secrets, but this is a little bit of inside talk, so you can understand what I'm saying. You get 2 scores. You have a voter propensity score, and you have an ideological score. Your voter propensity score is 0 to 100, how likely you are to vote. And your ideological score is 0 to 100. Are you going to vote Democrat, or are you going to vote Republican, right? So the people who score at 80, 90 on the ideology tend to correlate with people who don't vote very much. So when you go down the only group of people that Republicans have the numerical advantage in is people who show up to vote 100%, 90 to 100% of the time. Democrats have the lead in every other cohort. So as you step down, people are more left. And I don't know if that surprises you. It doesn't surprise me because they tend to be younger, right? They tend to be lower income. So young people and lower income people tend to have more left-wing views. And so what I'm trying to say is with Joe Biden, he will not appeal to younger, more left-wing people. Does that track? I mean, the polls right now kind of show it. His support largely clusters around that 65-plus cohort, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to say is if electability is your concern, Joe Biden sucks ass because he's not going to appeal to those people that don't vote. And as far as like the Bernie or busters, they're Bernie or busters. Maybe they would consider a Warren. I think Warren is another acceptable choice. Some people disagree with me, and I respect that. But I think she would be just as good as Bernie on a lot of these things. But I think Bernie appeals to those populist voters more than any other candidate. And I think they were decisive, both in the election, but also they have a disproportionate influence on the Electoral College, and that's how we pick our president. So that's why Bernie is much, much, much more electable than Joe Biden, because when people find out that he supported NAFTA, now, we can have a disagreement about whether NAFTA is a good policy, and we can leave that to another debate. If you enjoy this, we can come back and do another one. But the fact that he supported NAFTA, and that he supported TPP, and he supported these trade programs, may be something that you think is a good policy, but politically you recognize that it's a killer in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Iowa, Indiana, and Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually a bad thing. That means that will cost him votes when he goes up against Trump, because Trump will be able to tack to his left on trade. And when I say left, I mean skeptical of free trade agreements as they're currently constituted.
Okay.
And that's a big problem for the persuadable voters, especially in those electoral college significant states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, etc.
Sure. Can I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
So firstly, why are you so confident that people are actually going to be making these votes on policy? If that was true, then wouldn't we expect to see like a much greater share of Bernie Sanders supporters being in favor of Warren rather than like Warren supporters being more favorable to Kamala Harris? Why do we see these trade-offs in the electorate in terms of people's second choices?
Well, first of all, I would say that if you look at Morning Consult's poll, and I know you have, but we can pull it up.
Yeah, can you link it to me?
Yeah, I got it. I just Googled it. I'm fast. If you look at it, like, you're right to note that Bernie Sanders' number one second choice is Joe Biden, and Biden's number one.
It might have changed to Warren this morning. I think these got updated just recently. No. It's a lot closer now.
It didn't. Biden's number one second choice.
Oh, I
is
see.
Bernie.
You linked it. Okay. Gotcha.
Bernie's second choice is Joe Biden, right? But if you look at the Sanders supporters, what you'll see is Joe Biden number one at 31, and Elizabeth Warren at 25, and Kamala Harris at 8 or 26, excuse me. So there actually is an ideological section. Now, I 100% understand what you're saying about voters voting by ideology. They don't. You're right about that. I'm not arguing that Bernie is going to win them over by ideology, though. It's a little bit more sophisticated than that. But what I will say is it's hard for you to come at me that voters don't vote by ideology, and then to also simultaneously hold in your mind the view that Bernie is more dangerous in the general election because he's too far left. That's an argument about ideology. What you're saying is you can't do both. You can't have both. Go ahead.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I've never in my life said that people vote by ideology. That's a very vague term. What I would say is people don't vote by policy. If you're going to say ideology is policy, well, then of course not. I definitely don't think the average person votes on policy, because then these voter overlaps wouldn't make sense. I would say that voters are more likely to vote on things like rhetoric. That's usually what I think. So
And
like,
I think Bernie's rhetoric is strong and appealing and simple.
But then
right?
why is he so far behind in the polls right now?
What do you mean? Do you mean in the Democratic primary? Or
yeah, in the Democratic primary.
Okay, so do you know what the national polls were the day before the Iowa caucuses in January 4th, 2008? Do you know how far behind Obama was to Hillary Clinton before the first primary?
Quite. I think it was 20 points behind.
Plus, yeah, more than 20 points. So like,
okay.
And then he won Iowa, and then then the whole race changed. So what I'm trying to say.
Wait. You understand that these two situations are not comparable at all, though, right?
They're comparable in many ways, and we can get into it. And the second thing is, like, if you look at Hillary Clinton's support in that 2008 primary. Now, I'm just giving you an example because you asked me a question.
Sure.
That was about polling, and so we're going to talk about paths to victory here in a minute. Is that Joe Biden? It's not that Joe Biden supporters don't like Bernie Sanders. They do like Bernie Sanders. They just largely think that Joe Biden is the most electable. And that's kind of a self-licking popsicle. The media says that Joe Biden's the most electable, and so they say that they're voting for Joe Biden because he's the most electable, and it continues to go around in a circle. Because, I mean, honestly, dude, it's August 6th, 2019. Most normal people are not making their final decisions about candidates right now.
Yeah, of course. So I want to push back on the first thing, because I hear this given a lot, that like that Obama, was able to make up this huge gap. And I could be wrong, because I definitely wasn't as politically corrected at the time. But my understanding in that Democratic primary was that Obama was like, who? Nobody really knew him much on the national level yet. At all, really, not much. And that when he started to speak more and people started to figure out who he was, he started to pick up a ton of popularity, and he kind of came almost out of nowhere and dethroned Hillary in that election. Bernie has had a full election cycle for everybody across the country and almost across the world, because of how popular that election was, to get to know who he was. He's coming into this race with way more name recognition than Obama ever had at the beginning of his race against Hillary.
Oh, sure. At the beginning, no, I grant you that, and he also has a lot of strengths as well that Obama didn't have, and like the other thing is like the thing about Joe Biden is he's a much weaker front runner than Hillary Clinton was in 2008. Do you at least acknowledge that? Like what
do you mean by weaker?
He's got much less support, both money, endorsements, his position in the polls, like compared to Hillary Clinton in 2008. He's significantly behind her. Because he's not even the top fundraiser. Like he's behind Bernie on fundraising. He's behind Bernie in volunteers. He's behind Bernie in almost every metric but national polling.
I don't know if I would grant that. And the reason why I wouldn't is because the field is so much wider this time. Like
that's part of why Bernie doesn't have higher numbers, is because there are more choices. Like you're kind of making my argument. And the field will narrow.
I don't think so. I feel like, if anything, I would be making my argument there. Like Bernie is coming into this he's already had a full campaign cycle to run.
Joe Biden was VP for 8 years, right? And so, like, why do you think people are voting for Joe Biden? Because there was a poll recently done on this. Like, what was the number one?
I haven't seen the poll, but I would almost bet my life on the association with Obama. That people
Correctamundo. 88% of people saying they were voting for Joe Biden was his association with Obama. Now, at this point, that's the most relevant thing to most normal human beings, because frankly, most normal human beings do not think about politics as much as we do in this conversation in the whole year. So like that is the truth. Like you have a certain percentage of the electorate that consumes political media as a hobby. And then which is
a very, very, very slim percentage of the electorate, I would imagine.
Like look at the ratings at MSNBC, Fox News, CNN combined. You're talking about like 10 million people. That's the people that are.
Although, based on the polling data that I've seen, and it sounds like you're familiar with all of this, it seems like the people that were the most politically connected or that considered themselves high consumers of media still were overwhelmingly, or not overwhelmingly, but still did come out, like the plurality of those people favored Joe Biden. Now, it wasn't.
Oh, okay. So I hear what you're saying. So here's what's happening. Like right now we have a narrative in the media that largely kind of recirculates the idea that Joe Biden's the most electable, even though there's no empirical data for that. Other than there is one point, which is general election polling versus Donald Trump 18 months from the election. Which, if you look at Nate Silver and you asked him, hey, is general election polling 18 months before the election valid? He would say, fuck no.
Sure.
So it is a data point that he's the most electable. He does lead Trump by the most in most places, but Bernie is right behind him in most of those general election things. For example, a
Mhm.
poll just came out today about Texas, and both Bernie and Sanders were winning in Texas head to head against Trump. That came out today,
Okay.
and so what I'm trying to say is the electability argument is what's circulating in the media. The attention
I
level is low,
Yeah,
and
so this is something that I think we should address more. I think that a lot of people kind of just use this as a gimme, but I don't know if I would buy that the only reason so many people support Biden is just because they think he's more electable. Like, I feel like the name recognition from Obama and the desire to return to kind of like that Obama-esque era, like the
sure.
association that he has is more powerful than people literally like, oh, well,
Oh
I
no, I think
really
that's
don't like
powerful,
Biden that
definitely.
much.
That's why he's
Especially because in
winning.
that Yeah,
That's why he's
especially because
winning.
in that same polling that like tested people's political engagement, I think the people with the lowest political engagement were the ones that were more overwhelmingly in favor of Bernie Sanders. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't so I don't buy this thing that Biden is only popular just because people think that he can win. I do think that people, as much as it hurts to say, genuinely do like Biden and harken back to the Obama days, even in even
Yeah,
in
no. They're so the thing about Joe Biden is again, like I'm not somebody who's telling you the polls are fake, but what I am telling
Mhm.
you to do is that the assertions I am making, I think they're pretty well founded, is that national polls don't matter. They're not how we pick nominees. Bernie Sanders is behind, but he's behind. Like for example, in the morning consult poll, we have Joe Biden's at 33, Bernie's at 19, Warren's at 15, Kamala Harris as at 9. Like that's a
Mhm.
substantial lead from Biden, but you know a wiggle down 5 points and Bernie up 5 points, which is totally within the margin of error, and you have a tight race. Like we're not, and that kind of movement can happen easily, right? And what we see here is Bernie Sanders' advantages are, like for example, he beat Hillary Clinton in Wisconsin primary, right? He beat Hillary Clinton in the Michigan primary last time.
Mhm.
He won the New Hampshire primary. He has the best operation in Iowa. He's going to have the
When you're
most
talking about
volunteers,
so Iowa's only important because of the meme caucus like momentum, right? Like otherwise, like I don't think Iowa's like necessarily that important in the overall electorate.
except for the
It,
fact that it's a purple state, right? And it's
sure, yeah, but like
yeah,
when we look at these other Rust Belt,
as opposed to like South Carolina, which is a deep red state that will never
sure,
vote for a Democrat.
yeah,
So
for sure. But like,
should we care what the purple states that are going to be the where the possible winner or loss of the election is going to be more than say like a deep red Republican state?
sure, but when we look at the fact that a lot of these like purple states that ended up swinging Trump, like a lot of these states are places that support Biden, don't they? Like he has like strong support in these places due to his association with Obama.
Oh, okay. So you're saying like for example, Biden does pretty well in Pennsylvania right now. That I mean like that's true. That's true. But if you, I think there was a poll of Michigan. Again, they don't tend to poll the states that are not coming up early. You know what I mean? Like you'll maybe get
Yeah,
one
because they want to
poll.
see like where the like caucuses and everything are
Right,
going to
right.
fall because it's like the big sure.
And like for example, there's like almost no polls out of Nevada right now.
Hmm.
And I know you've heard before that Bernie Sanders is the most popular candidate among Hispanic voters, right? That's a key
Latinos,
demographic.
yes. Black people, no, but Latinos, yes, yeah.
And so Latino voters are vital for Colorado, Nevada, possibly Texas because we just had that poll, right? And if
Hmm.
the Dems can flip Texas, then the Republicans literally have no path.
Hmm.
And so somebody like Bernie, he has this kind of interesting coalition, right? And the one thing that's happening, I think, is with Elizabeth Warren, a lot when it was just Bernie versus Clinton, a lot of Elizabeth Warren voters right now or supporters were in the Bernie
Hmm.
camp. But since they do track closer to Warren now, they're in her camp. But as
I
we
don't
get,
know if that's true.
I think that's
Weren't
true.
Elizabeth Warren voters more likely to be like college educated,
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
likely to
Well.
be white, more likely to be high income? It seems
Yeah.
like an
Yeah.
exact flip between Bernie's voters. Bernie seems like he has more of a
I'm
coalition
talking
with
about
Biden voters.
2016. Don't you remember the
Oh,
memes?
2016.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, don't you remember the memes about Bernie Bros? Like now, though, if you look at the numbers, like Bernie Sanders voters are overwhelmingly like young, lower income. He does very, I
Less
think he
educated, less
less
yeah.
educated, but he was very, I think he was like tied with Biden among people of color, which includes all Hispanics, Asians, others, Black people. Like if you look at them, it's like 22-22. And so
Hmm.
what we have here is a very interesting situation. And I'm not saying that Biden's not the front runner, but I'd give him like a 30 to 40% chance of being the nominee. And that is that's a good number. Hey, I'd want that number, right? But it
Hmm.
doesn't mean that he's like gonna win. And then when you actually look at policies, which a lot of voters are going to do as we get closer, and they are going to see what the pitches are, And they're not going to just go like it's right. It's one thing right now to answer a pollster that you get called on the phone and you say, who are you leaning to? I've got 20 candidates to name. Here, they're going to go in alphabetical order. Are you ready? Joe Biden, Michael Bennett, blah, blah, blah. Like 20 minutes later, you're done with the list. It's not a surprise that people are saying Joe Biden, right? That's a far cry from 18 months from now. They go into their caucus location in Iowa and they stick it out for 4 hours.
Sure. I mean, if anything, psychology, I think, would tell us that you're more likely to probably say the name that you hear last, and Sanders is going to be a lot further down that list than Biden. But
hey, Warren's going to be dead last in that thing.
Sure, yeah.
but they stop when they do these polls. By the way, they stop you when you say the name. They don't just keep reading. Like if you say,
oh, okay,
yeah, like
all right. I feel like I could be totally wrong, but I would be shocked if they didn't like randomize the names or something.
See, the thing is, they normally do. But with this many people, it's too much of a hassle for like the pollsters
to randomize the names.
Yeah, it is. Like you wouldn't believe it, but it's true. Go look at some of these polls, and if it doesn't say randomized, they didn't randomize it. Like I know this because I've purchased polls before and run them. So like if it doesn't say,
why wouldn't people
that
run these like?
I know you would think that. You would think they would be competent, but they fuck up. It's believe it or not.
Okay. It seems strange that the polling data on with all these compounding fuck ups has been relatively consistent. I think since like the beginning of
I don't know
like this election cycle, but
it's been pretty consistent. Like you have a poll today that came out from I think Reuters where Bernie was 4 points down to Biden, and then you have this Morning Consult poll that we're looking at where Joe Biden's at 33 and Bernie's at 19, and so like which one of those is statistically like which one's correct? Because the numbers are outside the margin of error of each other's polls.
Sure, so, I usually just look at the aggregator, I guess, on real.
Yeah, you look at the aggregator. The aggregate, you can look at aggregators, right? But aggregators don't necessarily like. I'm not trying to say the polls are wrong. They're not. Like Biden has the advantage and he's probably leading, but there's a far like so the point. This argument all started because I said Joe Biden is not electable in the general election. And then you said, well, why is it that he's got 33% of the Democratic primary vote if that's the case? And like, to me, that's not actually, it's kind of off track from the original argument, which is his electability in the general election. Like, I'm not saying that Bernie, like the thing about primaries are that when you have this many choices, you're going to have this much of a diversion. A diversion or divide, I mean.
Sure. Here's like a kind of like a question I have for you that I guess I don't. So what it seems like if I take everything that you're saying to be true, that people are going to rally behind Sanders because of the more kind of populist leaning message, the left leaning political positions aren't really a problem, that all of these things are true statements. Why did Bernie come into this election cycle, so low and has stayed there the entire time? Why wouldn't he come in?
What do you mean by so low? You mean second?
Yeah.
So he's okay. So he's been in second. He's maintained in second. And the answer is largely his supporters are lower income, lower educated. They're probably considered to be less likely to vote than Biden's supporters, who tend to be old. Like Biden really crushes it with the 70+ demographic, right? In the Democratic primary.
Okay.
Not necessarily against Trump. And so what you have here is Biden is just doing better among older voters who are more easily polled, that are a significant portion of the voting population. And they're not saying Biden, not Bernie. They're just saying, I like both. At this point, I prefer Biden because I think he's more electable. And that's where we are right now. But if you ask them, who do you trust more on healthcare, they're going to go with Bernie. So if the
I just want a crystal clear answer on this because I feel like I've kind of gotten too maybe just because we're talking about different things. I'm not saying you're double speaking. So do you genuinely think that the people that support Biden over Bernie, that the primary reason, not the only reason, but the primary reason a voter would support Biden over Bernie is just because they think he can win the general election?
I mean,
right now, that's what you just said.
Right now, I would say the primary reason that people support Biden over Bernie is perceptions of electability and possibly nostalgia to the Obama administration. Those will be the top two: electability and nostalgia, not policy. And I think if you look at, for example, support of Medicare for all among Democratic primary voters, it's like 80%. If you look at the
Well,
general, if you look at
depending
the,
on how you ask the question, but yeah.
oh, no, we could talk about benchmark polls versus tracking polls versus brush fire polls if you want.
It seems like the response to that is like heavily persuaded based on which side of the Medicare for all you present.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Let me put it this way. If going into the election of 2016 and you ask people, do you support Donald Trump's efforts to build the wall on the border with Mexico? Do you think that that is neutral, or should we have said, do you support Donald Trump's efforts to build the wall with Mexico, even though it will cost $20 billion and it is not actually physically feasible?
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you give me the first question again?
So the first question was, do you support Donald Trump's plan to build the wall on the border with Mexico? Or then another question you could ask is, do you support Donald Trump's plan to build the wall of Mexico, even though it's physically impossible and will cost $20 billion?
I mean, I would, depending on what you're asking, I would argue that both of those are primed. The second one is super primed, but in the first one, you might not be finding out if people are in favor or against a wall. You actually just find out if they like or don't like Donald Trump, right? So, but
okay,
I mean, obviously,
so
yeah.
fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you're seeing here is, and by the way, here's the thing about voting, right? Like
Sure.
when we do these benchmark polls, which is what you're talking about, where we test messaging, like we go, would you support Medicare for all if it means you lose your private insurance? And by the way, that is a very loaded question, because you're aware about the cognitive bias that humans have called loss aversion, where where we are
it's super common in trading too. If you think you're going to lose $5, even if you could gain $100 like after, you're more likely to just avoid the loss.
Right.
It's like a decision paralysis.
So
yeah, of course.
when someone wrote that question, they were deploying the strategy of triggering fears of loss aversion. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not effective. It doesn't mean it's not effective. It doesn't mean it's not true. But it is.
I would say that based on all the data that you've shown me so far, loss aversion seems to be like a general trend of the electorate, because that polling that you showed me earlier and that big thing, it seemed like a really big common factor between both parties was like that the a view that politics is a rigged game. So if you do believe that politics is a rigged game, which both parties seem to united on, that talking about taking away anything
I don't
to give
think
you
Joe
something else.
I don't think Joe Biden unites on that.
Wait, what? I'm sorry. That the electorate, the people that are voting, that they're united on not trusting the political parties.
Right. And who of which candidates do you think speak to that the best?
Well, I mean, it's going to be the populist, anti-establishment ones, I think.
Right. So they're in sync with the electorate.
Well, I think that question is too broad. Like generally, I would agree with that, but like, and it's so hard to tell how people will react. But like when I think of like the types of attack ads that were made against the ACA, it was usually things like death panels, like rationing care, you're going to lose your doctor. And I mean, like, these are rhetorical attacks that are, very effective, that play into that politics is a rigged game narrative very well. And I feel like you could launch all those same ones against like a Medicare for all that provokes private health insurance.
Not to interrupt you too much.
Go for it. Yeah.
Do you think that the public option would be attacked in the same exact way, using the same exact language as what you're saying, as Medicare for all? Do you think that the health insurance industry will allow the public option to happen without a bloody fight?
I think that the attacks will be similar, but I don't think that people are going to say like they're going to make your private option illegal, and I don't think that'll land the same if the other person actually will.
Did you see that ad that took place during the Democratic debate?
No, I was streaming, so I had to mute when we were talking.
Shoot. So let me see let's see if I could find this. Fucking had it at some point. It won't take me too long to find, but like, so I'll talk while I look for it.
Yeah, sure.
So like ultimately, I think what we're talking about is your point to me is Biden's more electable because he's currently winning in the Democratic primary poll, and like it's not
not just that. I mean a little bit more. But go ahead.
If you want, we can stipulate that Biden is currently winning, and that in the Democratic primary, and that it might indicate. And by the way, winning with 33%. So he doesn't even have like, if he had 55, that'd be one thing, but to have 33, that means
sure. I mean, it's a much wider field right now, so it's a lot different than it was when it was just Bernie versus Hillary. But like when we dig into primary votes, I'm pretty sure in 2016, did New Hampshire swing pretty hard for Bernie when it was wasn't that one of Bernie's big wins? Why is Biden leading there now?
Oh God, I've seen so many different polls. I've seen like 3 different people winning in that. I don't
Okay.
know. I think honestly, if Biden's winning New Hampshire, uh, it's probably a point. Although I don't know. I could just look it
Okay,
up.
sure.
This is
I
this
see
is like
anywhere, depending on the poll you go, anywhere from 3 to 7 points.
yeah.
But
I
like,
mean
even this being
yeah, like
close, I mean, Bernie won this massively. If it sounds like the general argument
sure.
you're making is that Biden aligns more with kind of Hillary Clinton, this sort of distrustful neoliberal-esque thing. Why would you have so many ex-Bernie supporters, I guess, that swung for Bernie in this primary now going to Biden if that was the case, if they were making these same types of decisions?
All right. So like looking at let me see what we have here. I mean like we're talking about Biden at 21 and Bernie at 17. So like this is margin of error stuff. This basically
But we're talking about a district that Bernie won 60 to 38 in 2016.
Well, no. But what I'm saying is like when we get to this point, like in the future, like
Sure.
this, New Hampshire is up for grabs. Iowa's up for grabs. We're highly uncertain what's going to happen in those elections. So like by projecting ahead and saying Biden's up 5, therefore he's going to win New Hampshire, or Bernie doesn't have 60% like he did. Well, it cuts both ways. There's a lot of different candidates. Everyone's like that decisions have not been locked in. Now, if Bernie is losing in New Hampshire when we get to that primary, he's not going to win. Okay? But like right now, all I'm saying is Bernie Sanders is in a position that he can win the Democratic nomination. I would give Biden the advantage. But if you put together, say, the candidates that support Medicare for all of various forms, so Warren, Bernie, and Harris together, I think their chance of winning is greater than Biden's chance of winning. So that's another way of saying that.
That is another way of saying it, but I don't know if
hold
Warren...
on. That the supporters of Medicare for all are actually the favorites right now to win the Democratic nomination, which means that the party is actually oriented more towards the policies of Medicare for all than they are.
Hold on. There's a lot. Wait. There's so much.
Biden.
Okay. Hold on. I would never associate like a person's support with just Medicare for all. People are voting for these candidates for vastly different reasons, and Medicare for all, I don't think is the one issue that they're pegged on. Firstly, secondly, I don't know if it's fair to say that we can just go ahead and add up Warren, Bernie, and Kamala Harris together and say like, oh well, look, like you can definitely tell that these voters all go for each other. Especially when it seems like a lot of the people that came out and supported Kamala Harris were eating into the people.
Oh no, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that they necessarily transfer from one to another in any like direct way. I'm just saying that if you have the odds of who's going to win the nomination and you add them all together, I would rather bet on the field than Joe Biden.
Well, that's a math question, of course. If you go I think if you look at the voting odds right now, I think you get 25. It's like a 25% chance, I think. That
so
Biden
I think the point I'm sorry. So, but just so I'm clear, the point I'm making is yes, Joe Biden's leading because of those nostalgia reasons and the electability argument. Those two are very strong. But overall, his odds of winning are not greater than anyone else. Like he's not a odds-on favorite. He's not like a crushing front runner. He is a
I guess it just hurts that like in these places like Michigan or New Hampshire, these like shocking like huge wins for Bernie, that when you get like he had a whole campaign cycle to woo these people where it was only his message. He was like one of the only people that had their ears aside from Hillary and I guess O'Malley or whatever for a little bit. But like Hillary, it was like really his only main competition. He got them all on his side, and it seems like he lost that support like almost instantly in this election cycle. I don't know how he goes back to getting it back. That just seems kind of weird to me. That's why I said like that's why I don't like comparing him to Obama, because he came into this race with so much recognition. I would have expected him. If you would have asked me like before people started calling, I would have said, oh, if Bernie runs for the next election cycle, he's going to start as a front runner for sure. He had a whole election cycle last time against Hillary, who lost. Like he's going to be
who
massive.
would be the front runner if Biden wasn't in, do you think?
If Biden wasn't in, I don't know if it would be Warren or Kamala Harris. I don't know. Or Pete. I'm not sure. I don't know if it would be Bernie or not. I don't know.
It would be Bernie, and I can say that with confidence based on the second choices. Like Bernie's already significantly ahead of Kamala Harris. Like she's at like 5-9% in polls. Like she's 10 points down to Bernie.
Sure. And most Biden supporters seem to support Bernie. Like they share a similar coalition. Right. Yeah. So it would probably be Bernie.
It would be like Bernie. I think Bernie or Warren would be the leader.
Okay.
And I'm like
I think so. Yeah, probably.
Highly certain one of them. So like what you're saying is that Joe Biden's personality is leading to him to have a small advantage in the Democratic primary right now, which means that we don't need to deal with your general election arguments. Why don't we just stipulate that Biden? It's an interesting argument that Biden has the advantage right now, but let's turn to what happens if Biden wins versus what happens if Bernie wins, because I think that's where, and then we can talk about this and see whether or not you think it is is persuasive that some progressive would have a better chance against Trump than someone like Joe Biden.
Okay.
Because I don't necessarily think, like, if you look at like favorability, like if we look at the favorability of the candidates, like Bernie Sanders is 72% favorable and 18% unfavorable according to this morning consult poll, and Joe Biden's 74% favorable and 19% unfavorable, which means they have the same fucking numbers basically statistically. Like
I don't know if I like using those numbers that way. Favorability versus unfavorability is not. I don't know if that's necessarily makes a statement about who you're going to vote for. Like a lot of people can be favorable or not have much unfavorability
so do you
versus
wait
a
wait
certain
wait?
candidate.
Do
Yeah,
you
go
think
ahead.
do you think that if someone's favorable of Bernie Sanders, but they
Uh
don't
huh.
have him as they have him as their fourth choice, but he
Uh
wins
huh.
the nomination, they're not going to vote for him?
Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm sorry. We're
In the
just talking
general.
general. We're just
Yeah,
talking general. Okay.
we're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
talking
Okay.
general. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Okay.
I'm
So
not
yeah, in
trying
that
to
case, yeah,
argue
your
that. Yeah.
favorability matters a lot. Yeah, I would say that that's good then that he has high favorabilities for sure. Yeah.
So like I'm not very concerned about
Mm-hmm.
Bernie. And by the way, like if I could make very strong arguments for Warren,
Mm-hmm.
that are even like I think the numbers for her show that she's like the consensus candidate right now, kind of behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
and like and there is some really. I'm just a Bernie supporter because of my ideology and policy positions, but I love Elizabeth Warren, like, and we can get into that, but I think she's probably, if I was betting,
Mm-hmm.
like you could get a good deal to bet on her right now.
Okay.
Um, but what that indicates to me is that my argument about where the Democratic Party is, I think the Democratic Party ideologically is with Bernie and Warren, like the voter base. Now they might not be voting based on those policies, right? But they think that those policies are the right policies. They might end up voting for Biden because they're more concerned about electability because they hate Trump. But if they had their dream candidate, and I think this has been polled, I think if everybody said that like you could wave a magic wand and you could get the person's policies, who would you want? I think Elizabeth Warren won that.
Okay.
And if you look at, by the way, if you look at the debate,
Mm-hmm.
post-debate polls,
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth Warren annihilated. I think she got like
Yeah, her favorability was really massive compared to everybody else here.
yeah, and I think it was like Warren, Buttigieg, Bernie, and then
Mhm.
everybody else had a pretty disastrous debate. They didn't really matter. Which it does track. I don't think that, for me personally, when I watched the debate, I thought that Bernie and Warren did great, and I thought Warren had more quips that were slightly better, but I thought Bernie did good, and I wasn't as impressed with Buttigieg, but it's
Mhm.
fine. That's just my personal view. It's not based in numbers. So like, okay, what am I trying to say? So like, let's look at the general election and why I'm concerned about Biden. So like on the merits, like
Mhm.
right now we have a perception of electability versus like what does the data say about what makes you an appealing candidate to these voter blocks that we talked about earlier.
Okay.
And so, we can get back into the study, and you can push back on this or think it makes sense to you.
Mhm.
I really like figure 8. And by the way, everybody, if you want to see my side of the debate, go to central_committee, twitch.com, twitch.tv, whatever. And you can see mine and follow me if I have at least held my own. Come on. Anyway, view that politics is a rigged game. So like,
Mhm.
what you see here is those Obama other and the Obama Trump voters both
Mhm.
view politics more as a rigged game than the people who voted for the parties. Like that tracks with my personal impressions, because I've knocked like 10,000 doors in Pennsylvania in 2016 and 2014. So I've talked to these people, like, so I have my own personal like lived experience, and then but I'm not going to appeal to that because you can't verify that. I'm just
Yeah, of
saying,
course,
to
sure.
me it tracks. And then
Yeah, I
when I
understand.
look at this, it feels like, oh, okay, this makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
And Bernie, at least I think, and my perception is, if you're one of those people that think politics is a rigged game, you probably are open to listen to Bernie Sanders and you like his messaging.
For sure, 100%, yeah.
Then I look at importance of Social Security / Medicare. So like, we both agree that Social Security and Medicare are social democratic positions, socialist, programs, right? Like social democratic programs.
Sure.
Very,
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
very redistributive, very
Mhm.
much like to the
Well,
left. They wouldn't come out of the right wing, right? They're products.
I don't want
of
to
the
be
left.
like super nitpicky, but just because you were earlier, I wouldn't say Social Security is redistributed, right? It's literally a pension that you pay into, and then you get back more or less based on how much you paid into it, right? So
Oh no,
technically,
that's true that you do get more if you pay more, but you actually get more out than you put in. You get a return.
sure, yeah,
That's
for
true.
sure, yeah.
So you are getting redistributed, and the way they pay for that is they have current wage earners pay a tax, and that's what goes to pay you. And and they have a trust fund, but it's the U.S. government holding U.S. government debt. So like if you give yourself an IOU, that's not really an asset. So the real flow of funds is from current workers to, retirees.
Sure.
So in a sense you have somebody giving money to someone else. So that's redistributed in the sense of like a program.
Okay.
If you disagree with that, I'll be happy to. I think the larger.
I don't know if it's worth anything about this, but when I think redistributed, I think that like you have some sort of progressive tax policy that is taking a greater share of income from higher earning workers and giving that to lower. That's kind of what I think when I think of like redistributive. Social Security sounds more like a pension/retirement plan to me. I understand that it's heavily funded right now by workers because the people that are retiring are getting more than they put in, and we have more older people than younger people because of the baby boom, and therefore it is almost like a quasi kind of pyramid scheme depending on how you look at it, like good or bad or whatever. But like, yeah, but this is such a non-point, I think. But like,
I agree with what you're saying. Actually, I think the point I'm largely trying to make is that it's a left-wing program.
Sure. Okay, I can agree with that. Right. Well.
Everybody supports it. Right.
Everybody loves Social Security, okay?
But it's objectively a left-wing program, and the conservatives hated it when it was being proposed, and they fought it tooth and nail, and now they support it because the voters will kill you if you try to get rid of it because they're 65 plus, and that's how they make.
I'm just trying to be real clear because I don't want to say civil. I wouldn't say like civil rights is a Republican thing because Democrats in the 50s and 60s were the
LBJ signed it. I mean, he was a Democrat.
I'm just saying. Okay, but sorry. Go ahead. Okay, I'm sorry. We're getting lost in the nitpicking. Go for it.
I do think, though, that if you looked at it from kind of a dispassionate, objective view, program like Social Security, if it didn't exist and we were proposing it, would be a left-wing proposal, right?
Would come from Democrats, absolutely. I think,
and it did in history. It came back, and then you have attitudes on foreign trade, and here's the thing that's really interesting to me. Are you aware of like attitudes on trade and how they've changed over the last like 6 years?
I'm not, but my guess would be just tracking what the general electorate is like, or I'm sorry, just tracking like who's popular and what the speeches are about. I would guess that people are becoming anti-free trade in increasing numbers on both sides. That would be my guess.
So actually, that's not the case. What's interesting is like Democrats used to be the party that was skeptical of free trade agreements, the voters.
Okay.
And Republican-based voters were the people who were largely in favor of free trade. Okay. They didn't love it, but they were and it's kind of swapping under Trump. Like there was a transfer.
Democrats are favoring free trade?
Right. Yeah. More than they did in the past. And Republicans are starting to oppose trade because that's what Donald Trump is out there saying, right? So they're aligning.
That's really interesting because like Bernie and Warren all have like anti-free trade positions.
I know. Isn't that interesting? And that's because largely that was the position they've held for a long time, and that's what they objectively think is the right thing to do. And there are reasons for that. And like the trade discussion has to be its own conversation. We can't do it here. It's too complicated.
Maybe. I almost wonder if just because I don't think here's something that I would wonder if Americans aren't actually pro-trade or free trade, but rather their position on trade is a proxy for other things. So for instance, like if a Republican is anti-free trade, I wonder if that means they're really anti-free trade or they just really hate China and Mexico because Trump talks about it so much. And then same thing with Democrats that like, oh, free trade sounds like ways to globalize in other countries and immigration, and it kind of ties into that. I wonder if the positions are actually related to trade or if they're more just like proxies of like other positions that people have. I'm not sure the answer to that is.
Yeah. I mean, I have a story that I could make up, but I don't know if it's like empirically supported. But the point I'm largely the reason why I'm talking about this cohort because we can argue that like the thing that Trump was able to outflank Hillary Clinton on was on trade. Like he was the anti NAFTA guy. He was the anti TPP guy, and Hillary Clinton was the person who helped negotiate TPP when she was Secretary of State. And then she kind of pulled back and said, no, I don't support the final version. And meanwhile, Barack Obama was going around the country saying we should do TPP in the middle of the campaign, kind of hurting her. And what ended up happening is a lot of those Obama-Trump voters, they're skeptical on trade. And because, which tracks, because where are they located? Michigan, Wisconsin,
And
Pennsylvania,
yeah, manufacturing and shit. Yeah.
and in those Rust Belt states. So if Joe Biden were the nominee, the same thing would happen. He would get outflanked on trade again in those same states that are electoral college powerhouses and that Democrats must win. And you know what? Maybe his personal likability would hold up. I just tend to think that when Donald Trump goes down in the dirty against creepy Uncle Joe or whatever his nickname will be, and he goes and has rallies and he talks to those blue collar workers in Western Pennsylvania, and he said, "This is the guy that was behind NAFTA. This is the guy who supported TPP." It's going to resonate.
So I'm not sure on that actually. And the reason, I don't know how much you trade, but holy shit, if the markets slide too much more because of our fighting with China, I don't know where American sentiment on free trade will end up at. Because my understanding right now is that the round of tariffs that we've done on China and then the retaliation is actually hurting a lot of different sectors across the United States.
Well, here's
And
a question.
I don't just mean, to be clear, I don't just mean stock markets, which I don't think most Americans honestly give a fuck about, but like actual like jobs and agriculture and shit is actually getting hurt because of a lot of these like counter tariffs that China's acting.
I would say, like, chat, if you hold a large portfolio of securities, please go ahead and put a one in my chat if you're a high roller. And I will expect you to be like sending me donations because I don't think it's really relevant for most America. Like, I think most Americans hold some sort of like mutual fund or some sort of 401k.
401k pension.
It's so small. It's so small, right? It's such a small number. I think like the average 401k balance was like $7,000 or something.
Sure. So I want to be clear. I'm not just attacking like stock portfolios because, like I said, I don't think most America. I think it's like 81% of stocks are held by like the top like 5% of people. So it's some outrageously small amount. I don't think most people care when the stock market dips, other than maybe they see their 401ks or pensions get hurt a little bit. But I do think that like jobs are being lost and actual people are suffering. And then look how many stories you got of like protectionist like Trump. Like, remember what was there was the air conditioner plant. I think there was Ford that laid off
Carrier,
like 10,000 workers. Like Carrier. Yeah, like all of these stories.
They moved to Mexico.
Well, I think Carrier was going to, but I think they stayed, but they still fired everybody because they ended up automating everything. Or if that wasn't Carrier, it was another company that did it. Like, Trump really hasn't saved any of these manufacturing jobs.
Well, that's because he's in a party that's the corporate party that doesn't give a shit. And mostly like they let him do ineffective things that's messaging, but it's not a coherent industrial policy like they have in Germany, right? It's just like it's just random shit he throws against the wall, and he's an incompetent, and so he doesn't have the people in his administration to do a protectionist program that makes any sense, or have it, or if not protectionist, like an industrial policy that makes sense. And he's and so largely he's an incompetent fool, and so. The
only reason I bring that up is I wonder if American sentiment on trade is going to shift one way or another based on the tariff wars with China, because it's going to be really easy for Trump to continue to parrot the same China's killing us on trade over and over again, but it's going to be harder for that to land, I feel, if like everybody's starting to feel like an economic pinch as a result of that.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Like, I think if Bernie or Warren are the nominee and say Trump's like trade policy goes sideways, they will not be hurt, because you can't hurt them if they have a position that's similar to the person who fucked up, right? Like, why would someone who's angry about Trump's trade policy then vote for Trump? It doesn't make any sense. Whereas with Biden, what we know right now is those Obama-Trump voters, those populists, are skeptical on trade, and that's part of the reason that they shifted from Obama to Trump, is because during Obama's campaign, I don't know if you know this, but he was like anti-NAFTA during his campaign. Did you know that?
I didn't, but it wouldn't surprise me.
But at the same time, there was a scandal during his campaign. This is one of the most significant scandals, where he had some of his like campaign went up to Canada and were talking to the Canadian ambassadors, and they said, "Don't worry about Obama and NAFTA. That's just something he says to rile up the base." Okay. And that came out, and so it was like a huge like, "Oh, Obama's talking out of both sides of his mouth on trade," and it was like actually one of the down times for Obama in the campaign because of that. And so what I'm trying to say largely is that, like, based on the data that we have, and we can only look at the data we have, I see what you're saying is a possibility, and I don't just exclude that universe as a possibility. I just think that if you look at this, you see the Obama-Trump voters are skeptical on trade, and Bernie and Warren are stronger than Trump in their skepticism on trade and trade agreements that we currently have. And that would at least neutralize that as a talking point for Donald Trump. And if anything, they could go after him for his incompetence, like caustic farmers and failure to protect carrier and the manufacturing. And they could hammer him on exactly those weak points where you pointed out he's totally failed and not saved anything. They could go after him on that. And there's a difference between, and this you may think this is propagandistic, and I'm fine with that because I care about winning.
Yeah.
Is maybe it's not totally fair. Maybe Trump couldn't have done anything, but in a campaign, nobody's going to give him the benefit of the doubt,
Oh, that's always true. As a president, you have the responsibility.
Exactly.
You get the credit and the fault for anything that happens in the economy, even though the reality is you probably can exercise very little influence over it.
And if you look at and as we kill, I'm planning on going through all of these. I'm going to go faster through some of them than others. But the next one is attitude on gender roles. This is why I think Bernie is better than Warren in a general election, is I tend to think those Obama-Trump guys are probably misogynistic.
Sure. I noticed that Kamala and Elizabeth Warren share a huge coalition of women voters. And I kind of wonder, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Which is fair. I mean, I'm sure Obama got a lot of black voters because he's black. I mean, that's how elections work. And I'm sure Trump gets a lot of voters that are white and don't yeah. So yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I think that's the one advantage that Bernie has is he's able to, and you know what? What I'm saying fundamentally is there's a lot of pieces of shit out there who have bad opinions who might consider voting for Bernie anyway. And the thing about politics is you can have all the bad opinions you want. It's your objective actions that matter. So I'm sure there were racists, and objectively, according to this study, we're going to get to it, who voted for Obama. So they did a anti-racist act, even though they're personally racist, because they made a choice in the structure. And vice versa. You can make a racist decision while you're not racist. And we all know that. That's obvious. And so Bernie Sanders, so attitude on gender roles, I think this is what gives Bernie Sanders an edge in a purely Machiavellian. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying.
No, yeah, I understand, of course. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then, stuff like, pride in America. This is one of the things is those Obama Trump voters tend to be more, that working class whites. They tend to listen more to the patriotism argument, right? Perception that people like me are in decline, right? This is another thing. Hillary famously said, America is already great.
Yeah, she fucked up real hard because the general sentiment around the world was this pushback against globalism because certain populations have been left behind completely. And when you're sitting there saying everything is fine, people are like, well, what the fuck? It's not.
And where do you think people have this opinion in America?
Where do I think, what are you asking exactly?
Where in America is this disproportionately concentrated? The people that think.
Oh, it's going to be in the Rust Belt, in the places that swung for Bernie versus Hillary in the primaries of the last cycle.
And Trump over Hillary in the general.
For sure.
Right? So and Bernie is the one who's making this argument about the middle class and not getting wage increases, and it's all going to the top and blah 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 blah.
Although I would say, to be fair, every candidate, Biden included, is making these arguments much stronger than Hillary.
But he's the most authentic voice on it, right? The millionaires and the billionaires. People make fun of him for it, but it's he's so authentically him that no one's gonna beat him on this argument. Others are making it, and I give you that. But he is the anti-millionaires and billionaires guy, or whatever. Now that he made $1 million, he's people are saying you can't say anti-millionaires and billionaires as much. And then attitude toward black people. This is the thing that really tracks for me, right? These Obama Trump voters were kind of racist, but they still voted for Obama. Why do you think that was? Well, they were probably voting on some axis that didn't have to do with their racial animus. I don't think they suddenly gained a racial animus after they voted for Obama, right? I think that doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe you disagree.
Well, I mean, I think I would have to agree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, maybe
clearly, if they're super ultra racist and they're still voting for Obama, there must be something else that causes them to vote for him. Yeah, of course.
And the same thing with immigration, the Muslim stuff, all that. And the one thing about Bernie, and this is a point I'm interested to hear your take on it, is what is Bernie known for as being a squish? What does he get attacked from on the left? Somebody what would Kamala Harris say about Bernie that you're not strong enough on X issue?
I've heard that Bernie doesn't spell out his foreign policy positions enough, and I've heard people attack him that he's not as strict as he should be on guns. I think those are the two that I usually hear.
And there's one more. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to do a pop quiz.
Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah, I don't know. What is the other one that he gets to do?
The other one is he used to say that open borders is a Koch brother proposal. He used to be skeptical of extreme it's like an open borders type situation.
Oh,
Like a
sure,
very,
okay. Which I would expect because he's a protectionist, yeah.
yeah, because he's from Vermont, right?
Hmm.
And so now he's shifted on that, but he gets attacked for being a squish. And what do you think those populist voters, those blue collar Obama Trump voters, what issues do they want to have a squish on?
I'm sorry, just when you say squish, you mean somebody that like breaks from party lines, or what do you mean by
Breaks
that?
from party lines, but or isn't it isn't like it isn't a core part of their message, right? Like if you think about voting for Bernie, you don't think, oh, that's the gun control candidate, right? You
Uh-huh.
don't think
Yeah, for
you don't
sure.
think that's the
I mean,
immigration liberal candidate.
I would imagine that these kind of like middle moderate voters or whatever would generally lean a little like I would say generally lean a little bit anti-immigration if you're talking about like manufacturing place
Oh
or whatever,
yeah,
because they would view it as
yeah,
more threats
definitely.
to yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. They
Hmm.
definitely would be anti-immigration. They'd be anti-immigration. And like, if you've ever interacted, and maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Have you ever interacted with a union electrician in Philadelphia or carpenter? Or
I have in New York, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. Do you know the type of guy I'm talking about, right?
Unfortunately, but that my family is half Cuban, so or well, that part of my family is Cuban, and they fucking hate all Mexicans and every other immigrants and shit. So, but I think it's different for Cubans. But yeah, holy
but the
shit. But yeah,
but
I know
like
what you mean. Yeah.
but those guys tend to be left on economics, as far as I've heard. Like they
Hmm.
have Scabby the Rat. You know, they're pushing unions. They're pushing higher wages. They want to have like strict protections on like the work site. They want to have vacations. They want to have stuff that is left wing economically. But right
Hmm.
wing, you know, they listen to Howard Stern and shit.
Okay.
And those are the type of guys who traditionally voted Democrat, but who voted for Trump. And I think those guys, and in my personal experience, I've even seen like retired steelworkers with
Hmm.
cowboy hats wearing Bernie Sanders t-shirts
Sure.
and going out there
These are
knocking.
like what you're describing as like this is the blue dog Democrat, right?
No.
No, what is the difference here? Because
So
so this is a term that I hear a lot. Blue dog Democrat is like are these people that aren't necessarily like ultra conservative? I'm sorry,
okay.
they're not like ultra progressive on social positions, but they're like big like union guys, big manufacturing guys, like big protectionist guys. Is that
Yeah. So okay, so there's this is more like Connor Lamb. I don't know if you remember who that was, but he won a special election in a Trump plus 20 seat in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
Um, and he was not right. He wasn't right. Well, so a blue dog is traditionally like right wing on economics. They're like the guys who vote against a minimum wage increase. And
Oh,
then,
okay.
so like, so a blue dog is kind of considered a pro business Democrat.
Okay, gotcha. All
So what
right.
I'm saying is these guys are the inverse of they might catch these guys on the social stuff like the guns. They might vote against gun control. Like for
Mhm.
example, Kirsten Gillibrand used to be a blue dog, and she would vote against gun control, and before she reinvented herself when she became senator. So she went from
Okay.
being a congressman in upstate New York, and she was a blue dog Democrat. And when Hillary Clinton became the Secretary of State, she got appointed to be senator for the state of New York, and she had this political transformation to align herself more with the state of New York as a whole, as opposed to that district she used to come from in upstate New York, right?
Okay.
So,
So blue
so
dog Democrats are going to be mainly like southern tier type.
yeah, I tend to think of blue dog. I mean, so this is like one of those things where this is my analysis, and some people might disagree, but like I tend to think
Mhm.
of blue dogs as like pro business and they're squish on social issues. So they might be anti-abortion, they might be like anti-gun control, they might be opposed to like the Affordable Care Act. Do you know who Matt Cartwright is? This is again not a quiz.
Nope. No,
Nobody.
I don't.
Okay, so in Pennsylvania, Joe Biden is from Scranton, right?
Okay.
And that is there's something called a pivot county. A pivot county is a county that voted for Obama twice and then flipped to Trump.
Okay.
And Joe Biden's hometown of Scranton is one of those counties. There's two others in Pennsylvania. We'll get to those in a second.
Mhm.
And it's represented by Matt Cartwright. Now, Matt Cartwright is a member of the Progressive Caucus, and he primaried a blue dog Democrat who voted against the ACA. And he is a co-sponsor of the Medicare for All bill.
Okay.
This is the heart of Obama-Trump territory. And so when Hillary Clinton was losing to Donald Trump by 9 points, he was beating his Republican opponent by 10. Okay? So
Okay.
even in the territory where I'm talking about, like we can field test this. There's another pivot county in Pennsylvania, in Northampton County. It's now represented by a Democrat for the first time in 20 years by the name of Susan Wild. Susan Wild is also a co-sponsor on the Medicare for All bill. So
Mhm.
two out of the three pivot counties are now represented by Democrats, right? Who are members of the Progressive Caucus and who support Medicare for All. Now, those are supposed to be the moderate swing voters, yet their own congresspeople in Pennsylvania support Medicare for all. So when I hear Medicare for all is dangerous for the swing voters of Pennsylvania, and I look at this empirical data about how the Obama-Trump guys are left on economics, and I see the politicians that represent those areas supporting Medicare for all, I just say, what the fuck are you talking about? And by the way, the third pivot county is Erie County. And now I'm from Pennsylvania and I work in Pennsylvania politics, so I have an encyclopedic knowledge here. Erie County is currently represented by a Republican, and he barely won his race in 2018. It's probably going to be one of the top targets for the Democrats this in 2020.
Sure. So I have to I'm trusting everything you say because I don't really know as much. So I've got
by the way,
two
Mac,
sentiments.
Go ahead.
Or I was saying, so two sentiments I'm kind of seeing a couple people saying, I don't know if you can speak to these, are that one, these districts didn't actually go that far for Trump, and that two, like some district redrawing happened here that might have swung these districts as well. Are either of these true, or do you think that
okay, so now it's two things. First of all, district redrawing did happen, but Matt Cartwright won prior to that and after, right?
Okay.
Number two, and his district, both pre and post, voted for Trump by a lot. So people who are saying it was narrow are wrong. Now, Elizabeth, Susan Wiles' district did end up, the new district did vote for Hillary Clinton by 1 point in 2016. The old district voted for Trump by, I think, 7. But she won. The old Republican retired in 2017. And so there was a special election. So in 2018, at the end of, he retired in 2018. So in 2018, Susan Wild ran both in the new district that was redrawn and the old district that was gerrymandered, and she won in both.
Okay.
So that's the way it is. And by the way, I mentioned pivot counties, not pivot congressional districts, right? So this is, their districts include more than these pivot counties, but the pivot counties are where those Obama, Trump voters are. So if you are a representative in those counties, and you're asking yourself, what policy should I support to increase my likelihood of winning my district? And you are on the front lines of where the Republicans are going to go after you. You would not co-sponsor Medicare for all unless it was very popular in your district. And
sure.
The key thing to remember here is Pennsylvania went for Trump by like 30,000 or 41,000 votes. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. I have to look it up. But it was very close. And so these areas, if they're telling you, their representatives say Medicare for all is a good idea, the data we show shows that these swing voters are left of center economically. The idea that Bernie's too extreme, on the too economically left, is not really supported to me. And this is
maybe we real quick. Whoa, because that was a huge jump. It seems to me, and I mean, you're obviously more versed in this than I am, but it would seem to me that I don't know if you would say call it district politics, but local politics are far different than like a broader general election or even like a primary landscape. That the reasons the policy positions that somebody might run on in particular districts, that there is so much more going on at a local level that we can't just, I don't think you could just paint a broad brush and go oh, well, look, Medicare for all was popular and worked in these two districts, so all moderate districts should be okay with that. I think it's a lot more nuanced than that at the local level, right?
Oh, no, of course. I think what I was trying to demonstrate was particularly here in Pennsylvania.
For sure. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Because my understanding in terms of and there's oh my god, it's so complicated. But when I try to when I was trying to look into who was flipping what in terms of which districts were going more popular, why did we have the quote unquote blue wave in 2018? That it seemed to be more moderate Dems flipping purple districts than it was any extreme left. So if we look at for instance people that were supported by the Justice Dems, that these people didn't flip a single district at all, and it was generally more the moderate Dems that are being hurt more by.
Okay, so that is a talking point, and I'm glad that you brought me on to debunk it. So it's two things. It's kind of all right. So you might have a disagreement with me here, but this is my opinion and experience. So
go for it.
There were districts that the progressive candidates won in the primary, and then the DCCC said they're too far left and they pulled out. And those people ended up losing by 1%. I'm thinking off the top of my head, Kara Eastman and Scott Wallace. People, feel free to Google those. Those were two people that were considered to be too far left for their swing district. And at the end of the day, people were oh, we probably should have gone in harder on them because they ended up getting very close. And then there are actual progressives who won. I've already mentioned Susan Wild. I already mentioned Matt Cartwright, who was an incumbent, but he held his seat. There's also Katie Porter out in Orange County. She won she's not nominated, that she wasn't endorsed by Justice Dems,
Mhm.
but I'm a progressive. I'm not just Justice Dems. I'm talking about the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. I'm talking
Sure.
about MoveOn.org. I'm talking
And
about
and to be clear, the progressive caucus in the House is far more moderate, or it seems to me, than like the Justice Dems, who push quite a bit further to the left.
yes,
Would you agree
that's
with that?
true.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
But so like we're and I would say like for Bernie Sanders in particular, all of
mm-hmm,
his if there's two things. There's like the flavor of his rhetoric, right? And the
mm-hmm,
long-term horizon, and then there's the actual things he's proposing. And most of the things he's proposing are pretty solidly social democratic and not like crazy socialist. Like it's
yeah,
kind of like he kind of puts on a air of socialism, but he rules like a social democrat. You know what I mean? Like all those things that he's proposing are not like Looney Tune
yeah. We're
wackadoo.
not like decommodifying housing
Right,
or some
exactly.
crazy shit. Yeah,
And you know there are arguments we could talk about housing and different models of how we could deal with it in the future, and you can bring
mm-hmm,
Dan in here to scream because it would be funny, but he's actually not proposing like all these radical things. There's a few things out there that are pushing the boundary, like his Medicare for All plan would actually be the most left wing single payer plan in the world in the sense that it covers more things than anyone else. So it'd be more comprehensive than every other single payer plan.
yeah,
Um, and you know that is pushing the horizons a little bit, but I don't
mm-hmm.
think that like deciding to cover dental, whereas you know Canada doesn't, is not like it's not an insane thing to do. You know what I mean? You're talking about degrees here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that covering dental and vision is insane. Banning private insurance that's a pretty big step on top of that, though, if you're going to cover it, right? But
Oh, and by the way, like
mhm.
I'm not saying that democratic socialists are Looney Tunes. If I said that, I have no idea why I said that. You guys are
Sure.
fine. I'm just saying that if you look at Bernie, like
Hmm.
he has that flavor, and then if you look at the substance, it's not like we're gonna make sure that companies get taken over by their employees. We're not gonna seize the means of production. He's not proposing a ton of nationalizations of stuff. Like he's not saying America's the number one oil producer, therefore we should take all the oil wells. You
Yeah.
know, like that's the kind
Yeah,
that
no, no.
would
Oh,
be
yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, nothing. It's one of the reasons why it's confusing when people call Bernie a socialist, and then Bernie calls himself a socialist, and he's not really a socialist. But yeah, yeah, I know what you mean.
I mean, so like the reason is like, are you familiar with the concept of convergent growth?
Uh, I can guess what it means, but I don't. If it's something particular, no. What do you mean?
You know, like in China, how they have like 6% growth every year.
Okay.
The reason they're able to do that is because they are less developed than the United States and the Western world per capita,
Oh, sure,
right?
but you probably are maybe theoretically or asymptotically approaching some level of growth
Right,
that
and then
will taper off hardcore.
right.
Yeah.
And when they get close to the fully developed economies, as we would call them, like the OECD,
Hmm.
they wouldn't be 6% per year anymore. They would then
It'd
go
be like
down to one or
2 to
two or
4 or
three.
something,
Yeah, two to
depending
four.
on.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to get that growth when you're starting from a relatively undeveloped country
Yeah, when
to
you're a
catch
developing
up.
country.
Right.
Hmm.
But once you catch up, you are out of the phase of convergent growth. Now in the United States, we have the same thing with our public provision of services. All of these things that Bernie's talking about in countries around the world are already policy: free college, universal pre-K, you know, paid sick leave, and maternal leave. You know,
Hmm.
$15 minimum wages exist out there in the world. Like there is almost nothing he's proposing that is not tried and tested. So like when people say he's too far left, they're really making a judgment about the opinions of American electorate voters, not his actual policies, like whether they're feasible
Well,
or not.
yeah, but I mean, like, that's what we would expect people to do,
Of
right?
course that we
Like,
would
when we
expect
talk
it.
about, like, are you left or right, it's gonna be in the context of American politics. We're not gonna judge you based on where you would be in Scandinavia because that's not where the American electorate is at,
Sure,
right?
sure, sure. But when we ask people, like, do you support paid sick leave and maternal leave? Overwhelming
Mhm.
support. Do you
Yeah,
support
of
a
course.
wealth tax? Overwhelming support. Do you support, universal health care, Medicare for all? And you have different flavors of that. People are like, yeah, we want to have universal health care. Hey, do
Mhm.
you want to have?
Although, keep in mind, you have to be careful because, like, when you pull a question like this, like, depending on how you present the question, I mean, of course, like, all of these can boil down to, not to be reductive, but like, do you support free shit? And like, people will always say yes to that. But like, when you start to ask, like, even a slightly more nuanced version of this, one of the biggest shockers to me was the polling data on climate change. I think it was like, do you
Mm,
support like doing something about climate change, or should the U.S. do something about climate change? And it was like, I think like 88% of people or 90% of people said yes. And then the next question was like, if you had to contribute $1 a month or something something or $1 a week to combat it, that support drops to like 50%. It's like insane. And
Well,
for a
that
lot of
you know
these
what that
things,
you know what that tells me. Like the
what?
truth is, like half of people don't even have enough money for $400 expense. Like you're aware of that statistic, right? So even $1 to like a large portion of people, believe it or not, kind of seems like a burden. And you're right. Like there
Yeah,
is
but
a
like what you saying is supporting my argument, right? This was
no.
like a lot of people
Well,
view this as a loaded question, but when Jake Tapper asks, like, are you going to have to raise class on the middle class or raise tax on the middle class to pay for healthcare? Any answer of a yes to that is going to be really fucking scary for a middle class voter that, like you described earlier, has that decision paralysis over giving up a little bit in the hopes that they'll get a lot for it in the
oh
end,
no,
right?
but there's a counter to that because
Mm-hmm.
when you ask, it's going to have to raise your taxes. That's true. It
Mm-hmm.
will raise your taxes, but you have another mandatory payment that you already have because we have to get health insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you gamble and don't take it and you pay the penalty. But in other words, that Trump reduced to zero. That's a whole other discussion. But the point is, like, you have to pay premiums, you have to pay your deductibles, you have to pay your co-pays, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you could pay taxes, and then it's a math question: will your taxes exceed your premiums, co-pays, deductibles, and healthcare costs, or will you win? And so the thing is, for Bernie Sanders' plan, 90% of people will see an increase in their take-home pay, and they'll have better benefits. Now, there will be some losers, some people at the higher end, some
Mm-hmm.
people with really good healthcare plans might get a slightly worse benefit, although not very many people. But on net, like, it's not going to result in this like sticker shock that people are talking about, where people have to take out their checkbook and write a big check because we're substituting one mandatory payment for another. And so the implementation will like, wow, I don't ever have to worry about healthcare costs again. And
Mm-hmm.
then my taxes did go up, but what's my bottom line on my paycheck? And the question is, and this is what I believe voters care about: is the bottom line in my paycheck going to go down? That's what they're scared of. Now, Republicans use that rhetorical thing, and you're absolutely right. They're trying to trick people, and they're saying your taxes are going to go up, and that's
Mm-hmm.
technically true. But the real
Sure.
question is, the relevant question is, is your take-home pay going to go up and down? Your
Mm-hmm.
disposable income going to go up and down? And is your benefits, are they going to be worse or better?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously,
Are you
from a numbers point of
persuaded
view,
by
you're
that
obviously
point?
correct.
Of
Well,
course, I'm obviously correct.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, of course, because this is obviously true. But rhetorically, it's difficult because the average voter. It is. I mean, obviously, this is my take, and right, I think the average voter is a fucking idiot, right? So it's really hard. Like, for instance, like, and I'm
Well,
very loaded with my own anecdotal experience. Like, I knew a lot of people where I worked at who were scared of getting a raise because they thought it would bump up the next tax bracket, and they thought all of their income would be subject to that tax. Or people that contributed the maximum amount to like their 401k, like 20%, even though they weren't getting a company match, because they said that like, oh, well, money that is taken from you before you get it in your paycheck doesn't matter, it doesn't even exist. Like
right.
these people have like really crazy concepts of like how, like in terms of like what a bottom line means.
That's why
So like,
401ks suck ass, by the way. Like because like they don't work because people, no, you're absolutely true that
mhm,
people are
yeah.
terrible with money.
So like when you hear something where it's like it just sucks to give like that answer where something, well, you're gonna raise taxes on the middle class. Like the best answer is like no. But if you're like, well, yeah, taxes are gonna go up. However, the money that you spend more on taxes is gonna be more than made up for the amount of money you're gonna save on healthcare after we take away your
I could
private
be a
plan
little
and then
bit more
substitute it with the
pithy than
government.
that. Like Steve or Destiny. I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
I think I could
You
be a
can
little
always say
bit
it, that's
more.
fine.
I could probably be a little bit more pithy, and I would just say, your paycheck will go up and you'll have better benefits. So if
Sure. And I'm
so,
I'm hoping that like that type of
and
rhetoric
I
will get
think that will
explored,
work.
but
Now I can't prove it to you because
mhm,
I'm not God. I may sound like it on a chat, but I'm not. I
mhm,
can't predict everything in the future. I can
for
just
sure.
say that I think that from a point of view of like, is this the right policy? It's the right policy according to the way I evaluate the evidence. And
Sure.
then the
I mean, it's
question
better
is,
than what we have now, almost anything.
far better than what
Yeah.
we have now. What we have now is the
Mhm,
worst system in the world for developed
for sure.
countries. And
Mhm,
then two, the other thing is, what are the distributive effects for me? Like, will it cause working class people, middle class people to have a better both benefits and disposable income mix before the policy or after? And then we just have to try to persuade. And you know what? I can't guarantee you that it's going to work. But you also can't guarantee me that going for a public option is going to work either. Like, we can only go by what we think, I believe that the policy is a stronger, more pithy, easier to explain policy that gives people
mhm,
better benefits. And maybe they won't like that, they'll be risk averse. Or maybe by trying to moderate and move closer to the center, you lose those people that are left wing, you lose the people that are left-wing on policy, but so you don't appeal to those guys, right? You
Mhm.
don't offer them anything materially strong enough for them to appeal to them. And so you don't turn out any new voters because you're not offering something that is like interesting enough to make people want to show up that didn't in the past.
Sure.
And so like all those things, all those reasons is why like Bernie Sanders is to me more electable. And when I'm on figure 8, if you're still looking at the stupid study, I think this study to me tells you, at least it gives me a strong empirical view. That's an empirically supported view. I'm not saying it's God or it's the future. That Bernie Sanders would actually be a strong candidate, and that worries about his general election electability are either in bad faith
Or
or
misfounded. Yeah.
or misfounded. And so ultimately, if that's true, if both Bernie and Biden are probably electable and different, depending upon what universe we live in the future, which we can't know. Fuck worrying about electability. Let's get on who's got the best policies, and let's vote with our head and think about what we care about, what we believe is right, as opposed to trying to be our own amateur pundit and predict what some other guy's gonna do. Like, fuck that shit. Pick what you think is the right thing to do. Pick what you think the best arguments are. And worry about convincing other people with rationality. Now, you're right that they make bad decisions all the time.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like what you're saying should be a general strategy for a primary, regardless, right? Like regardless of whatever you should.
Which
always
is
be
why
pulling for that,
Bernie's and all of us who agree with Bernie's the majority of Bernie's policies, and maybe we have a quibble here. Maybe we think Bernie banning all private insurance might be a road too far. I tend to think that if Bernie gets elected, he has the majority of the caucus supporting the Jayapal bill in the House right now. I think it's 117. It might have gone up from there. So there is, and 2 of them are in those swing districts we talked about earlier here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, although overwhelmingly the people that are supporting it are not in swing districts. But yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Well, the one thing I would say about that, like the whole idea of we can't be too radical because the guys in the front lines, like only about 7 of 27 blue dogs are in districts that are considered to be toss-up by the Cook report. And you could probably say at most, if you're being the most generous, half of them are in districts that are purple, right?
For sure.
Or red.
So I don't think when it comes to like the Medicare, when it comes to the Medicare for all thing.
This is my point, and then we'll jump on. All I'm trying to say, like one more sentence, is half of the blue dog Dems are in safe blue seats. So primary every single one of them, right? We agree with that? The ones in the safe seats, and we can leave the ones in the questionable seats.
Sure. To be clear, when I'm talking about moderate districts, the policies that worry me out usually like Medicare for all, because like I said, I don't think that I don't know if like Americans are as hotly divided on issues like this. Usually when I'm talking about things like this, it comes down to more things like impeachment proceedings in the House against Trump. Like that's usually the stuff that scares me more in the more moderate seats. Although obviously that's like a whole other thing, not necessarily related to this. But yeah, I don't know if I would expect like the healthcare plans to necessarily be
we could do
as
an impeachment.
divisive.
Like I don't know how I've got a lot of stamina. So if you want to keep going, we can. Let me know. And we can talk about other things in the future. And hopefully I can start bringing you back. And the one piece of advice I would have, if you would let me give it to you.
Yeah, go for it.
Which is try not to associate Bernie Sanders, policy people like me, and who work for the campaign currently, which I don't. I don't work for them now, with the fans.
I generally try not to. Like some
ass.
people seem to think that like when I attack like progressives on Twitter, that all of a sudden, like I've had a lot of people say like, oh, like I'm being conservative, or I've gone like back to the right, or I'm like David Rubin or like Tim Pool, like supporting centrists or whatever. I'm not really. Like my policy positions are more or less the same as they were. Like I'm for some form of like I'm very big like for a not single payer. I'm very big for public option, probably multi-payer system, stuff like that. I guess
we should do a discussion on that, by the way, like some other day.
Yeah, we can. Sure. Yeah, we definitely can sometime.
Because
I just like the only thing that bothers me is I don't want people to be delusional about where we are in the polling or whatever. Because if somebody like Bernie or somebody else is going to make it through, like if everybody thinks that they're at number 1, it would just be really sad to have like another like 2016 cycle happen again, because people just have no idea like where the electorate is or what people are generally believing or yeah. And I'm starting to see like a lot of the same types of rhetoric being supported by Bernie supporters that were supported by like Trump supporters, where people, for instance, are linking like, oh, well, look at this broad map of where all these rural Bernie donors. And it's like, this looks like the map that people used to show that Trump had so much more support than Hillary on the electorate map.
I'll engage with you on that one. I will say like Bernie has more donors from a count, like the
Sure, he
perspective
does.
of like popular vote. Whereas with Trump and those maps, you're talking about empty land. A lot of the red of the map literally is federal land, and no one lives there. So like,
Sure, but
it's
like when you're
misleading.
posting those maps of Bernie, doing this
Hmm.
geographically, your only goal is to mislead with that, right?
Well,
Because
but
like
if
Bernie,
hold
if
on,
you look at
but
those
like
maps, it looks like Bernie has like 20 times more supporters than like any other, like,
he doesn't have
right?
20 times, but he has like 4 times.
Sure, but like if somebody were to show you that map at a glance, like, oh well, look at Bernie. He's like 90% of the U.S. is like donating to it. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah,
wait, why
yeah,
is
I'm
Biden winning in the polls by double digits? Like that seems
sure,
really
sure,
weird. Like
Well,
that's
hold
just
on. There's a difference between having a group of passionate supporters versus having people that are willing to just, say I support that guy in a poll.
Mhm.
So like we both agree that Bernie has the most passionate supporters, right?
That seems to be true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that does confer an advantage. Would you agree with that?
I mean, in terms of conversion to like donations or getting people to actually go out in the field and work for you, yeah, I would imagine it should.
Right.
Yeah.
So so we have we have the advantage of like the most passionate supporters, like the largest passionate supporters. So they are both the most intense and they are the largest group of like hardcore supporters. And then you were right to point out that Biden currently is leading in the number of people that are willing to say that he's their first choice, which is,
Hmm.
by the way, in voting, in case you guys are wondering, if I go in there and I vote really hard for Bernie, it doesn't count more than if you go in there and grudgingly vote for Biden. So because the only thing that matters when you vote is whether or not you did it.
Yeah.
All other things are just in your own head. And we do
Hmm.
kind of have this solipsistic obsession with what we care about, and not so
Hmm.
much like with what the consensus is and what you should be working on. If you really, really, really care about Bernie, you should be trying to convince other people, and you should be trying to be persuasive when you talk to them. Don't be
Hmm.
an asshole, because you're actually hurting Bernie.
Sure. Or
Win
like when I see
friends,
like another
influence
common
people.
like another ex-Trump talking point I'm starting to see. I saw today like people are tweeting about like how Joe Biden is like having strokes and he's like having stuttering spells and
Okay,
maybe
can I
he's
say
too old
one
or
thing about that? Okay, now
yeah.
I'm gonna say one thing that's might piss you off, but it is funny. So
Okay.
memes in the chat. Joe Biden has had two brain aneurysms already, and they were all surgically repaired. He also had a pulmonary embolism. So those are, whereas the Hillary Clinton
Yeah,
stuff
that
was
sounds like a survivor to me, but go
he
ahead.
is a survivor. Whereas the Hillary Clinton stuff was totally unfounded, and everybody who said she had Parkinson's is a piece of shit.
I mean, she collapsed
Well,
outside
she
during a
fainted,
funeral
and there was
like
she fainted, and there was a medical reason. She had
Mhm.
she had pneumonia, and that, I mean, like, there's no reason to think there was a big conspiracy there. Now,
Okay, sure.
I
Bernie isn't
do
Bernie
think,
almost like 80 years old though? Like
well,
the
he's like
actuary
he's
tables, he's coming up on like the death's door,
but
right?
he's
I mean,
Jew, but he's a wealthy Jew. I mean, like, the actuary
okay.
tables for those people go off the other end. He's got another 20 years in him, probably.
Sure, okay.
No, but no, like, we're being a little bit edgy here. Let me just say, like,
Mhm.
I think that's ridiculous. I mean, like, listen, Joe Biden of 2019 is not the Joe Biden of 2008. That's for sure. And
Mhm.
I do think it's valid to look at someone's health, and I think it's valid to look at Bernie's health and his age. It is.
Okay.
But the evidence, like, Bernie seems to be in very good health, like, for his age.
Yeah, there was that clip
And
of him 4 years ago, like running to catch like the subway or some shit or whatever.
you
Yeah,
know he
he seemed to be pretty healthy.
he's active, and
Hmm.
listen, if he has some medical thing, then that will be a concern. And I don't think, by the way, I don't think you're convincing anybody. If you're a Bernie supporter, I don't think you're convincing anybody when you go out there and talk about Joe Biden is having a stroke. I think you
Hmm.
actually alienate people when you do
Yeah,
that.
I agree. Yeah.
So if you're a Bernie supporter, don't do that shit. Talk
Hmm.
about how there's going to be no motherfucking copays. You're never going to have to worry about medical billing again. You feel sick, you'll be able to call your GP and go. How many of us, like, it happens to me, where I don't go to the doctor, even though I have 100 fever, 102, and I'm shitting my brains out, because I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to pay the deductible. That'll go away. That stress, I'll stop having to worrying about the medical payment of medicine, and start worrying about getting better. Do you know how much better society would be if we eliminated all the concerns about medical financing objectively, from a hedonic level, from a,
Yeah,
like,
of course. Yeah, for sure, of course.
utilitarian
Literally
level?
any system we have right now would be better than the American
Well, any
system.
system would be better, but
Yeah.
Medicare for all, no payment at the point of service system would be the best, as far as hedonically, from getting, like, the stress away from worrying about financing, right? You agree?
Sure.
From a
Well,
philosophical
I
point of
mean, I
view?
wouldn't agree with like no co-pays or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, I agree.
Well, we
We
can,
probably broadly agree
you
on
could
like, yeah,
say no,
some form of
okay.
universal healthcare has to happen in the U.S. It's insane that it hasn't. Yeah.
Like in Norway, for example, they have
Mhm.
copays, but the annual limit for all out-of-pocket expenses, I think, is like $400.
Yeah.
And they provide 97% of the treatment in Norway is covered by like government-run hospitals.
Yeah.
So like,
and if Democrats are against, like, if they think healthcare is going to be bad, then that could be a pro point, because death panels will kill all the old voters that vote conservative anyway. So,
I mean, there you go.
I'm
Like, so there's like it's a double bonus.
There you go.
We got
what
it.
I'm just curious, what do you normally do like around like the debates? Are you like on the Michael Brooks show or what?
So like I don't know, like I've been part of like Sam's community. I worked on the show for a short time before I left to do campaigns. Yeah, I just decided to start a Twitch stream because I was like, there's not enough lefties on here that have a policy empirical basis. Like, a lot of people make really good moral arguments.
Sure.
Like this is the one thing about the left, is a lot of people are comfortable with rhetoric like nobody should work 40 hours a week and live in poverty. And I agree with that sentiment, and it's a good sentiment. But on the other hand, if society only produces so much stuff, there's only so much ways we could distribute it. The only way
and this is exactly the position that I'm stuck in, right? Where like people will talk about like, oh, people can't afford a living wage, and it's like, okay, well, economics doesn't deliver that, but like we should do this, but not even necessarily for moral reasons, but like because this actually would be better for the country on like an empirical basis. Like, we don't actually need moral reasons to tell us why our people shouldn't be dying in the fucking streets because they're either homeless or can't afford healthcare. Like, there are empirical economic reasons to support this, which has been like my main frustration.
And that's where I'm at. And I think that was that's the weakness of left tube right now, is those empirical nerd arguments, which is, I'm sure that's going to get me a lot of followers and people who support me for the nerd bullshit arguments. It frustrates me because, so I saw that there was a need, and I was like, I saw you starting to slip into the neoliberal hellhole because where you're being
I'm a hardcore neoliberal, my dude.
No, you're not. You actually aren't. You've just been
honest to God, there is.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Do you support private prisons?
It would come right now, no, but it's not ideologically that I'm opposed to them. It's just that right now, like, the incentive structure and everything is so absolutely fucking insanely stupid that private prisons are god awful in the fucking United States. So I mean, like, if you could deliver like private prisons that didn't incentivize like people to pay off mayors to make laws to fucking,
but that's what they do, Destiny. That's what they structurally do.
But potentially, with the current structure,
they create rent seekers working in an area of the economy that is best provisioned in a non-commodified way. Because what you do is you create, when you have private prisons, you create companies like Geo Group, and they have an incentive to support
to fill the prisons,
to fill the prisons. And so, unless you created a private prison law that would worked in the way of disincentivizing prisoners. In other words, you're paying somebody money to have
to create a building and then keep it empty. Yeah,
that would be crazy,
but,
right?
Hey, we already do that. We do it with farms.
Well, right. But my point,
we have people plant crops, or sometimes we pay them not to plant them. But
what I'm saying is like, commodifying prisons is a neoliberal policy.
Okay, so here's like my big problem between SocDem and neoliberal, and I've explained this a lot. It feels like there's a lot of overlap between the rightmost parts of a SocDem and the leftmost parts of a neoliberal, because I've seen people describe neoliberal as being.
Go on.
Well, yeah, I know you're saying no, but so for instance, if we were to go visit like the neoliberal subreddit or ever,
you would just be a liberal then. Like, the SocDems end, and then liberals begin, and then neoliberals begin.
Okay, but here's the thing. Like, I've heard neoliberals give these takes where it's anything from a neoliberal is like the free market should decide healthcare, all the way to the free market can't provide healthcare and we should have a single payer system without even like private insurance. Like, I've seen like these two policy positions both presented as potentially.
I'll straight up say like so this is a definitional question, so I'm glad we're bringing it up. So
for sure, yeah.
Neoliberal refers to a certain movement that was in response to Keynesianism. And the sense of you wanting to return more and more parts of the economy to the private sector.
Yeah.
And the belief in the efficient market hypothesis.
Sure. And I've heard this, and we can go by kind of like the historical, like the foundations of like neoliberalism to define this.
The Mont Pelerin Society, etc.
But I mean, like, one, people don't use. I have no idea.
You should
But
Google.
I know that
You should
like
Google that. You should Google that.
okay, sure, we can, but it doesn't. It's not really relevant, right? Because like
It's only
nobody
relevant
goes.
because I'm trying to help you label yourself correctly. I'm not
No,
saying that
I understand. But what I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
is it's not relevant because nobody goes to the foundation of any sort of party to figure out like what the current modern day beliefs are. Like if I were to ask you like, is a Democrat pro or against like civil rights today? You wouldn't go back to Democrats that were anti-civil rights in the 50s and go, well, actually, because this is a Republican argument, right? Well, the Democrats were the real slave owners, right? This isn't typically how we define these labels today, right? We usually
Oh,
go
no,
by
no.
like what. And so
Sure,
like when
sure,
people are
sure,
telling me
sure.
like, oh, like people like Joe Biden is a neoliberal, and these people support some form of like universal health insurance. It's like, okay, well, I don't know what you mean by neoliberal. That's the only reason why I don't know, like, if I would say, like, I'm a sock dem or neoliberal, because some of the ways that people describe neoliberals, or some of the ways that, like, the neoliberal people describe themselves, is, like, pretty far left on a lot of economic issues. Like, being against, like, rent-seeking behavior, for instance, which is what private prisons often do with the extra profits that they make, right, is rent-seeking behavior to further lock up more people or whatever. So, yeah, so I'm just not sure. It comes down to, like, a definition of the label more so than a disagreement on policy positions, I think, you know?
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. But what I'm saying is, when you say you're neoliberal, it tends to mean that you want to move away from public provision of services. It's sort of like if, for example, what would you feel about a municipal ISP? So, like, say a city could run their own ISP, they could run fiber.
100%, baby. And then ISPs should just rent the last mile. Yeah.
So neoliberalism would be to privatize that and grant it to a utility.
I don't. Oh well, okay. I mean, I'll take. Yeah. This is why I don't use political labels anymore. Because like, the thing is, like, I understand
what
you're
I want
saying.
you to say is, Mike. Okay, I guess I'm not a neoliberal.
Well, I'll say that, but to be fair, I don't even label myself a neoliberal. This is the joke where I say like I'm an omniliberal because I just made up a new prefix. Because like every time I say like, oh, these are my political positions, everybody from like the neoliberal subreddit and the guy that runs the neoliberal podcast and all these people are like, oh, like these are totally neoliberal
Fuck those
positions.
guys.
These are
they're trying to get you. Don't let them get you. Like, what are you doing?
They can get me. It's not going to change my policy positions. I'm just not sure.
Well, no. They're trying to use you as a propaganda for their dying ideology.
Okay, but like another thing
they're tricking you with bullshit. I mean, there are guys that go in there that love. They like Alan Greenspan. Alan Greenspan is not ancient history. That's neoliberalism, okay?
Sure.
Like,
but people will try to say, and I've had people throw neoliberal at me as like a pejorative because everybody to the right of like, so like I'll hear people say like, oh, Pelosi, she's right wing. Clinton, Biden, they're right wing, and they're all neoliberals. And like neoliberals, like anything that's like not a socialist. I'm like, well, what the fuck? So like, yeah, it's all like really fucking confusing in terms of like how people understand these labels.
Okay, I don't know what dum-dums say. Like, what the fuck? I have to be responsible for what people would say that are wrong? Like,
well,
I'm just telling you what you are. You have not pushed back on me on anything. And frankly, like, ask your chat after this if you feel like you're much more persuaded about what I said today than you were coming in. Is that true? Do you agree with that statement?
I think so, but I don't think we started off like that different, right? Because like, and you even said it yourself, right? Well, no, because like you even said it yourself, like the beginning is that like my problems are with the people that are entirely out of touch with reality in terms of how they promote things. And it seems like you generally agree that like, for instance, attacking Joe Biden because you say he's having seizures is probably not a very politically effective strategy.
That's just a dick move. Like, that's not like a move that has
But this is unironically what a lot of people, why do you think I get so fucking mad on Twitter?
I don't give a shit what
I don't get mad on Twitter because people tweet me and they go, well, actually, Destiny, I think there's a lot of merits to single payer. I get mad because people tweet me and they go, oh, you support a public option? You're literally fucking fascist. It's like, what the fuck? Like, and that seems to be like a lot of the Bernie bros on Twitter today are like these insane fucking like, if you're to the right of socialism, you're literally like a fucking right-wing shill. And it's like, it's insane to me because if I were to talk to 90% of Americans, I would be left-wing in most European countries. But for somehow I've gotten branded as like an extreme right person, neoliberal shill online. And it's like, that's generally like where my problems are.
I'll tell you what I think happened here is, okay, like I think, all right, one of the things that I was known for, like in Majority Report and with Sam Cedar, if you talk to him again, is I talked to Sam, like, when I like got the attention of the show and I started to become part of it, was I talked to them about my experience in 2016 with the Hillary Clinton field program in Pennsylvania and how she really fucked up and she didn't persuade people and she didn't do the work that you need to do to like run a good campaign on the ground.
Yeah.
And one of the things I ran into is I am a hardcore soc dem socialist. I'm on that border. You know, I'm dem socialist curious. Like I want to experiment, but I also want to get all the good, well-founded social democratic stuff that they do in the Nordic countries.
Sure. I hope that like I don't know you well enough, but I hope that what you're telling me is true because I'm
Why?
also running into this thing because I get a lot of people. So like, I'll use Hassan Piker's example that say like, oh yeah, like I'm mainly a sock dem, blah blah blah. But then when you look at their rhetoric, when you look at their fan base, and you look at the things, they're like the most anti-liberal people in the world. Like they're borderline tankies. And it's like, wait, what the fuck? I thought you were a sock dem. So I hope that like you're
Let me
actually
tell you about the
like not
glorious
like
science of Marxism. No, but in all seriousness, in all
okay, yeah,
seriousness,
because like a lot of people say this, like, oh yeah, like I'm probably like a sock dem, maybe democratic socialist, and then like I'll go and I click on their stuff, and they've got like a fucking USSR flag, and they're like, cut a liberal and the fascist bleeds. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, wait, what is this shit? Like,
okay, well, there's a couple things here. There's like, first of all,
sure,
like I do think, and now the hot takes are coming. Tankies that have been pissed off in this conversation, get ready. Get ready to follow my stream, Tankies. Okay.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Oh boy, here we go. Most liberals actually are fascists. Okay, go ahead. Let's hear it. What do you got?
The Soviet Union as a historical entity was progressive in some ways and horribly reactionary and imperialist in other ways, and like the United States. So what we should
this sounds like every society ever. But yeah, go ahead.
But we should have a sophisticated and nuanced view of a lot of the things that happened in the Soviet Union, and keep in mind that the Soviet Union was under attack and isolated from the rest of the world, right? Because of its positions. So they were forced into, maybe you say forced, maybe you say it's inevitable. I tend to think it's forced because I look at Sweden and they got pretty far left in the Meidner plan and a lot of the stuff they do today, and they didn't fall into this authoritarianism. I think it was, and also Russia was a backward country when the Russian Revolution happened. So like, when people, that's true. But what I'm trying to say is, gotta be smarter. Read history. So like, and so when people do that, like I kind of see it as a reaction to our dumb culture where we just kind of flatten all nuance, all history, all learning, right, about the world.
Yeah, which is really stupid because then it hampers our ability to understand why people did the things they did in the past and how to avoid it in the future, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly. And you can look, and the Soviet Union had a lot of successes. Like that's just a fact, okay? And like, for example, they bore the brunt of the European theater of World War II. They probably did 70 to 80 to 90% of the real fighting was done by the Soviet Union. So we have them to thank for the destruction of fascism in Europe. And the United States, to their own benefit, did a lot of the fighting in the Pacific. But then they decided to nuke innocent people.
Sure. To be fair, the Soviet Union killed so many Nazis not because they were like invading like Germany, but because Germany was trying to launch a bunch of invasions against the Soviet Union, right? Like that's where most of the German deaths happened were on Soviet battlefields.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right.
But then they carried it home. I mean, they're the ones who took Berlin, and that was the hardest fighting. Like, and so no, you're absolutely right. But the point I'm trying to make here is like, why are people so scared of? You got to honestly look at what went wrong in the Soviet Union so you can learn. Like that's.
I know everything about it. I watched the 4-part Chernobyl documentary. So I got.
By the way, Chernobyl could happen here. Like that same shit could happen here. And if anything, you could argue that like the Soviet Union acted like incredibly fast. It did like they got like all the liquid nitrogen in the entire Soviet Union. Can we get all the liquid nitrogen in America to solve a problem? Maybe not. You know what I'm saying? All right, I'm being spicy. Yeah, I'm being spicy. But
sure,
like you could say that Chernobyl was caused by the Soviet Union, but you could also say that the reaction that saved millions might have also been the result of the Soviet Union. So like you could argue both ways. Like that's the point. And like ultimately, like the reason why we're even bringing this up is, left-wing politics in America has been dead for a long time. I remember in 2014 when I was a progressive and there was like nobody. Okay. So that's why I'm so, like, in my opinion, well-read, and because I've been a progressive before Bernie. I met Bernie in 2015 before he was a thing, and like, I get it. I'm saying I'm in the original Bernie bro. That's why I got all the answers. And so I've seen something happen, and because the left has been rejuvenated, there has been like a little bit of over-exuberance, right? People experimenting with ideas that have been left in the waste bin for a while. But but most of the idea, but that's not related to Bernie Sanders. Those are just like random weirdos on Twitter. Who gives a fuck? That's not Bernie Sanders, really. That's not really his platform. Those not really his people. That is a subset of people. And you know what? I like a lot of the energy of those people. I'm not gonna lie. I like the fact that people are willing to fight dirty in the Democratic Party for a change. I've been going through election after election where 2004, John Kerry got Purple Heart winner. His military service record was totally trashed by draft dodger George W. Bush.
I remember this very well because I was a very big Republican at the time. I was like, fuck, what was I? I was in high school, but I
And
remember all the memes about how Kerry got into a boat and he like filmed his own friends doing nothing and they jerked off and like scammed people out of Purple Hearts because he
well,
got a
that's
little
all
bit.
garbage. That's all
Yeah,
garbage.
yeah, I
That's
know, I
all,
know, I know,
yeah,
I know.
yeah.
I remember, yeah, but I remember like being a young Republican at the time
And the
that was
thing
like
about John
very much
Kerry
on the.
is he came back, multi-decorated guy, came back, and
Mhm,
he bravely led the Vietnam veterans against the. He was one of the leaders of Vietnam veterans against the war,
mhm.
right? That should have been.
It's insane to me how quick, like, it's so weird how fluid people are on their policy positions because those policy positions were always just a proxy of something else. Like,
Mhm.
I remember that, like, with Donald Trump, there were like everybody did this, I imagine, unless there was some god like that could predict the future, where there were so many things that was like, oh, Donald Trump just effectively ended his campaign. The time I got the hardest feeling that was when Donald Trump made fun of McCain's service. I couldn't actually believe that. Like a guy who had been tortured so bad that he couldn't even lift his fucking arms over his head.
Well,
Like
the
that
truth
Donald
is, like
Trump was like,
most Americans are not vets anymore. This is not
sure, I know, yeah, I
1950.
know. But like the
Like,
Republicans have always historically hid behind the troops
but
as
they
like a
LARP
shield. Like
it.
there was
They wrap themselves in a flag they didn't serve. Ted Cruz
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
serve shit. He
yeah.
served like I mean like so that is all like an identity. It's really
Mm-hmm.
based in this political ideology. And you're right.
Yeah,
It's
for sure. Yeah.
like
Or
hypocrisy
the same
is
thing with like this weird blocking of like trying to get benefits to the like the 9/11 firefighters and shit. Like it's like so fucking weird to me that like the only people
right.
standing against this are Republicans. It's like very
$1 trillion
strange.
tax cut, but we can't afford to make sure that people who got lung cancer from inhaling the
Yeah.
fumes on
Don't have to keep
9/11.
begging every two
Are you
years to
fucking
re-up their
kidding
fucking
me?
benefits. Yeah, it's
And,
insane.
and so like ultimately what do we need in the left? Like like for example, your fight with Hassan, like I've watched with dismay because I actually, I do think Hassan is to your left, but that doesn't mean you can't be friendly. What happened was you had a position and you don't want Kamala, and tell me if I'm wrong here. Kamala Harris, we don't want
Uh-huh.
her annihilated because if she wins the primary and we fucked her up and we made her totally unacceptable to everybody on the left, that might mean Donald Trump is going to win.
I mean,
Is
I
that
don't care if she's annihilated or not. I just don't want it to be because of made up dumb bullshit or whatever. Okay,
or
hold on. A
unfair?
lot of people say that I get in trouble, okay, because it's not because on Twitter, it's not me on Twitter. So I'll defend everything I say on Twitter, okay? Understanding that it might not be the best platform for the most nuanced of conversations. But okay, what are tweets like this? You can listen to a group of mostly white men rant about voter skull shapes while reading 538. Nate Silver 530 is a 21st century phrenologist. Wait,
Yes,
what
he
is
is. He is.
wait, are you
He
like
absolutely is.
super anti
So
like everything he does or
no, 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 no. So like, if you listen to the pod, like, what I specifically talk about is the distinction between where he's very good, which is as a statistics aggregator,
okay?
versus when he does his punditry, where he blows ass. And I hate it. Like, so when he goes out there and he posts like, oh, like for example, he had these pentagrams. Do you remember this? This is a couple months ago, so this is what I was reacting to. He had pentagrams where he was like, oh, Booker is good with millennials, Booker is good with this, Booker was good with that, and in those pentagrams, he had Bernie Sanders and Booker the same support among millennials, and it was just like, and then he had a category where it was Hispanic / other. You cannot aggregate all those categories into one subcategory. Like that's totally not statistically founded at all. So I called it voter phrenology because it was like, oh, black people are going to go with Booker and Harris, even though there's not actually been evidence of that statistically. So you have a punditry, a prediction that's happening here. That's he uses the credibility that he rightfully earned from his statistics aggregation in the models, which
Mhm.
I agree that I like them. They have problems, and we can get into statistics if you want, but I think they are useful, and I read them and I look at them. I'm not saying I'm not anti-data. I'm the opposite. But what I do have a problem with is his bad takes. His takes saying Bernie can't win, or Bernie this, Bernie that, where he obviously is baiting people and he's way out.
I don't think so. I don't think you've said anything that I've radically disagreed with ever. I think you've nuanced my views a little bit more on some things that like voters are aware of, but I don't think you've like read. I don't think that there's anything where it's like, oh wow, I didn't know that at all. Like, no, I'm totally like. I think for the most part, like we've read like
And
most of this stuff.
that, ladies and gentlemen, is when you know you've done a good persuasion job.
My mind has actually changed, but I don't know it. Okay.
Well, I mean, like,
Well,
ask
then
the
this is
voters.
where I ask you. This is where I offer you an 8-1 odds, $1,000 bet to see if you're that confident in Bernie wins. I'll give you better than market odds on him winning, and we'll see if you want to.
I don't know if it depends on how my stream goes. If I have the liquidity, I might take
Okay,
you up on it.
okay.
It might be,
All
it's
right.
like gambler's fallacy. Like just because you make a bet, like if the bet is too large, you can't afford to lose. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't mean
Sure.
I wouldn't take it if I had, if I had the risk of loss is too great, even though the odds are good.
Yeah, I understand.
I think about
Okay.
it. And listen.
No, I'm just fucking with you. Also, I'm just that.
No,
That's
no,
like
I'm
it's
not fucking
purely
with you.
posturing. It's not,
I'm also, I get it. Like you got to put your money
Mhm.
where your mouth is, right? You can't just spout off.
Well, yeah, a little
I'm not
bit, but
against it.
usually it's more the goal of those kinds of things is like, oh, well, I make so much money that I can bully you and make your position seem less credible because you're not willing to risk as much as I am.
Oh,
Like,
and
that's kind of
I don't have
bullshit.
any shame. I don't care that you make more.
Oh, well, yeah, no, but it would be bullshit of me to like pressure somebody like that, like, oh, you do that, right? Because that's bullshit.
Yeah.
If I was serious and we would do like a $10 bet, like 8-1,
All right,
just
I'm
because it would
back,
be
guys.
funny to the PayPal transfer on the day of whoever wins or loses would be funny for an internet meme. But yeah,
It would actually be funny. And hey, well, you know what? Don't attack Bernie anymore, bro. You can't.
I don't know if I do attack Bernie. I usually attack his fans. Now maybe that's a meaningless distinction or a distinction without meaning, but
Well, I think you said that his Medicare for all. Oh, I'm gonna get you now. His Medicare for all policy was the fifth right. Did you not say that? Or am I crazy?
I don't think I did. I know I've been critical of his policy. I don't think I've said the Fifth Reich. I know I've used Fifth Reich for some things though, but I don't know what that was in reference to.
Because I think the reference that I'm talking about is how his plan bans duplicative coverage. So like you can't have private insurance that is
which I think I'm heavily opposed to right now. Yeah.
Well, I mean that's common in many single payer systems, like a ban on duplicate coverage. The thing that's unique about Bernie's plan is it covers more than other single payer plans. Like for example, in Canada, I don't believe they have pharmaceutical coverage or dental coverage. They might have dental. But like so you need to have private insurance for the pharmaceuticals, but by the way, the pharmaceutical market in Canada is heavily regulated. So like they set
for sure,
prices,
which would be fine in the United States as well. Yeah, I just think from a policy position, multi-payer systems seem to do pretty well in other countries, and then from a rhetorical position, I think a multi-payer system would be way easier to sell to the American public than a single payer one.
Yeah, they're multi-payer, but they're like nonprofit and they're super heavily regulated to the point.
Sure, that's fine. Bring on the fucking regulations.
But do you see that the health insurance companies are going to fight that because that's existential threat to for-profit insurance just as much as single payer is. Like there is like the organizations that would be opposed to that to the multi-payer system, like you're describing a German or a Swiss system, right? Like those systems would be just as hostile to the American status quo as a single payer system, and they have disadvantages that a single payer system doesn't have. The number one being that they're more expensive. Now they have some of them have really good outcomes, and they do provide universality, and it is equitably distributed. And you know what? If tomorrow I could snap my fingers and we had the German healthcare system, I probably would take that bet. I would take.
Yeah, for sure. Which is generally where I point to. Yeah, so if I did say that Bernie, I don't know like what the association you think meant when I say like Bernie's plan is the Fifth Reich of healthcare. I didn't mean it was like a fascist Nazi.
Well, you think like America's capitalist, right? And you have the right to make.
My general association is that I didn't realize that when Bernie was putting forth the Medicare for all plan, I didn't know they wanted to ban all private insurance, which that's like a far more. He doesn't want
to ban all. This is a distinction. He doesn't want to ban all private insurance. He wants to ban private insurance that covers things covered by Medicare for all. Now,
but Medicare for all is going to be expanded to cover everything besides.
It doesn't cover everything. Like for
everything besides cosmetic surgery.
No. Like for example, like in dentistry, if you want an implant versus dentures, maybe the implant will not be covered by Medicare for all, and dentures will. So if you want an implant,
so cosmetic surgery.
That's not necessarily cosmetic in the same sense. Like there is a practical distinction between an implant and a denture. Like there is. And you're right, but nothing that people need to survive will not be covered by Bernie's plan. To me, that's an argument in favor for it. Because whenever you require people to get supplemental insurance, you're going to have people that fall through that loophole,
I think
right?
that, like, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Well, wait, which part of that do I agree? I don't agree that this is a distinction with meaning. I think this is a meaningless distinction. I think for the most part, you're banning when most people say private insurance and you say, oh, well, we're still going to allow like supplemental insurance. No, you're allowing insurance to cover generally cosmetic things. So for instance, like under Bernie's plan, and we read this earlier, something else, if that denture couldn't happen because of like some medical reason and you needed the implant instead, then you wouldn't be allowed to have like supplemental insurance for that. That would be covered under like the Medicare for all thing.
Yeah. So like, so here's the thing, like,
Mhm.
The question is, do you think that there is some sort of right to have a for-profit insurance company in the United States, or that it serves any positive purpose for society?
Okay, these are two very different questions. In terms of like for a right for anything, I don't usually look at things like that. Like, should there be a right for this or that or
Well, I
whatever?
only ask you because you said, like, it's capitalist America, and you should be able to do that or something like that. Hey,
Hold on,
chat.
wait, oh my god, wait. I can't let you just, I can't let you
By
walk
the
by
way,
so many
by the way,
people.
chat. If I'm wrong, fucking like show the clip. Like send the clips in. Like tell me if I'm being crazy and I'm making this
Wait,
up.
wrong on what?
Well, the Fifth Reich stuff. Like tell me if I'm.
Oh yeah,
if
oh no,
I'm
no.
wrong.
I think I said that because people are linking a clip where it's like, I didn't realize Bernie's healthcare was like the fifth Reich of healthcare. The point of what I'm saying is I didn't realize he was so extreme that he was going to ban like
It's
private
not
insurance.
extreme. That's what I'm saying. It's not extreme.
For the American system, that represents a significantly extreme departure from where we are right now.
Oh sure.
It's more
well,
extreme
fuck
than
where
just
we are right now. It sucks ass.
Sure, but it's more extreme than like a public option, which is what I was getting at.
Okay. So like,
right.
I think I see the difference between us is, I reckon, and maybe this is just my experience talking, is like, when you try to do something legislatively, right? You have different categories. You have the apathetic people that don't care either way. You have your enemies, and you have your allies, right? And I think the enemies of the public option are going to be the same enemies and with the same intensity as the single payer. And the thing
I don't know if that criticism is valid when Bernie is literally recommending the most extreme. We are the worst OECD country in the world, I think, for healthcare. And you're talking about recommending the most extreme healthcare plan in the world. That's like,
well, we're the worst, but we spend the most.
I understand that. Nobody, I know this. I talk about this all the time.
But private health insurance is so inefficient, full of so much overhead, so much profit taking.
I agree. I'm not going to disagree with any of these.
By the way,
but Bernie is recommending the most extreme healthcare plan in the world.
Let me attack private insurance more and give people more context.
Why? I'm not going to support it.
Well, but you are. By not supporting its abolishment, you are supporting its existence, which means that you are
sure. Alongside a public option. Alongside a public option. Yeah, sure.
But here's the thing that and here's the thing that the point I haven't made, which might help you understand where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Private health insurance would not exist but for the government.
What do you mean by that?
So, like, for example, the individual healthcare market basically did not exist. It was a rump thing prior to Obamacare. Almost all health insurance was in employer-provided plans. And employer-provided plans are subsidized by taxes. They're tax-free. So when the employer gives you a healthcare benefit, they don't have to pay taxes on that compensation. Whereas if they just gave you that in money, they would have to pay taxes.
Probably considered part of compensation, so it's like a write-off against your like revenue.
No. What I'm saying is like, they get subsidized actively. So we're losing hundreds of billions of dollars in tax revenue to provide private insurance, right? That we would be able to use for other shit. So private insurance doubly doesn't exist. And by the way, that individual market that Obama created is heavily subsidized. Like they have to give government grants and money to the insurance companies directly in order for them to be able to provide those private insurance plans. So what you're saying is, Mike, maintain this tax deduction for private health employers.
What? Wait! Oh my God!
Wait! Hold on. You want to repeal that?
I'm not saying this at all. Why would I let you finish this? I am never in favor of employee-provided healthcare. It is one of the few issues
Okay, hold on.
Economists,
so then you're saying we should do wait. You're saying we should do an extreme departure then, because if we got rid of that employer-provided insurance, everybody loses their fucking insurance. So it's the same goddamn thing.
But what I'm saying is we don't necessarily have to. Maybe you revoke some of the tax benefits for those,
but then they will collapse. Did you not hear what I said?
Yes, that's great. That was Pete's point. And you know what? If we get to single payer because the public option is so good that the private sector becomes non-competitive, I'm okay with that. Then fucking that's the path forward.
Oh my God. Okay, so what do you think is more disastrous for our country? Changing the laws on this and causing all of these insurance companies that previously existed to collapse, having a public option that's not ready to absorb everybody because we can't predict when the collapse will take place, or an orderly transition to a single-payer model that is more efficient, covers more, gets rid of worthless parasitic...
This is the most primed question in the world.
Well, of course it's primed, but it's reality!
Okay, we have two things. we can either provide a public option, in which case the companies, the insurance companies, will randomly fail at totally unpredictable times,
Well,
and
no,
we
no,
won't
no,
know
no,
if
no,
we'll be
no,
able
no,
to
no,
blah,
no,
blah,
no,
blah,
no, no,
blah.
no.
Or we can have the God-sent single payer that will be fully funded on day one, that can absorb every single person in and will be administratively efficient in every way, and will reduce. Well, I mean, well, which one am I going to choose? I'm not
Well,
really
of
sure,
course,
right?
because I know why you want to. I know you're saying it's primed, but it's also what's known as facts, motherfucker. Like, what do you
It's
want from
not.
me?
You don't know that. You don't know
Of
that the
course
United
I do.
States
Okay, all
transition.
right, all
You
right,
don't know
hold
that
on.
the United States transition to a single payer system is going to be there's going to be a massive shift of employment. You know that that's going to be an issue initially,
Oh,
right?
okay,
All
okay.
of those insurance
Of
companies
course.
are immediately going fucking bankrupt, and all of those people are going to have to transition to other types of work, which is
Okay,
going to be a
okay.
huge fucking
Oh,
nightmare,
no,
right?
no, no.
We
You're
are going to have
absolutely
to find
right. You're
funding for
right.
this program, which is going to be a constant fucking fight in Congress. Fucking fighting over even funding the fucking ACA shit was a huge fucking fight. So don't tell me there's not going to be a fight over funding the single payer system.
Oh, okay,
You know that
okay.
there's going to be a pushback from tons of
Yeah. So let me don't gish gallop me with too many objections. But I hear.
Oh,
your
don't go.
objections.
You've talked for like fucking 90% of the time we've been talking. Don't tell me I'm just galloping, okay?
Okay, I was just
Listen,
trying to.
we don't even
I was
disagree
just
on
trying
this.
to trigger you. It was a joke. It was a
Okay,
fucking
you
meme.
did it. Okay,
Meme.
listen, we don't even disagree on this, okay?
I know we
disagree on
don't,
any of this.
but I know we don't. But what I'm saying is that the public option is riskier according to the way you want to do it, which is get rid of all those incentives and all of those subsidies for private insurance. Then you're right. Like, so the rates will skyrocket, the premiums will increase dramatically. People will be flocking to the public option, and you're right. So, but it will be much more disruptive, and all the stuff you're worried about with people losing their jobs will happen because they're going to the public option, right?
Yeah, but maybe it happens in a more gradual fashion. Maybe the private insurance industry.
Why would it be more graduate than having a plan? Do you know what
because
Bernie's
maybe
plan
the
is?
private insurance industry. Well, one, because you would probably the Medicare for all or the public option rollout probably wouldn't be instantaneous. It would probably happen over some number of years, like even Bernie's plan does. One, two, maybe private insurers find that there are certain niches that they can fill. Maybe giving you preferential lines at some private hospitals. Maybe covering stuff that maybe
So a
like things like
two-tier
LASIK.
system, so rich people
What?
have better care, is what you're saying.
That's how
Two-tier system.
multi-payer works in other countries, and it works just fine. They have sure.
Well, I mean, it depends on what your values are, right?
Well, if your values are healthcare outcomes and cost, it seems like multi-payer systems are pretty competitive.
I do think like having a safety valve, like for example in Norway, what they do is they have like a maximum waiting period, right? And if you exceed that maximum waiting period, then the government is obligated to pay for your treatment in a foreign country. Like they will fly you to another hospital, and they'll get that treatment taken care of. But for the most part, you have to take care of your healthcare within that private system. And I do think they do allow like a small private market to exist as a safety valve. And I'm not necessarily against that.
Yeah, and if you are like super fucking amazingly rich in America, maybe you should be able to pay to go to a fucking doctor that like gives you a fucking head massage and a blowjob when you get your fucking cast taken off or some shit. Like if people have a lot more money to spend, then that's good. We should let them throw that into the fucking healthcare system.
But they're paying for the hand job. They're not paying for the cast. Like I don't want them to pay for the cast. The reason why is because universality is much harder to attack than having all these like different tiers of service, right? Because
hold on, I hear this so often that universality is harder to attack. Okay, universality is harder to fund. You're gonna need way more fucking money to deal with this if you're not gonna collect any outside revenue. Now we can sit here and pretend that money is free and no one's gonna fight over the funding for this or the tax raises that are gonna have to happen to fund it. But yeah, is universality easier to defend on something like say like education or healthcare? Yeah, sure, but it's also gonna require a fuck ton more funding to get it done.
Okay, so the one advantage to the Bernie plan is that creates by expanding Medicare. Medicare is a non-discretionary program. Do you know the distinction between discretionary and non-discretionary?
Discretionary spending is usually spending, I think, that's negotiated in the budget every whatever, and non-discretionary like has to fucking happen. It's a non-negotiable, yeah.
Right.
And non-discretionary spending that most people don't realize far outweighs our discretionary spending. It's like
right. So like for social and those non-discretionary items have they have their own financing sources of money. So like Social Security is paid for by Social Security taxes. Medicare is largely paid for by Medicare taxes. And so what the single payer model would do would be in one bill, you expand Medicare, you increase the benefits, right? And you increase the taxes. That would have to happen. And then it becomes a reoccurring thing that exists and doesn't require what you're talking about, which is like doing a budget every year. And so it becomes much more difficult for the
Sure.
Republicans to open up.
Once you have all of the mechanisms in place, well, I don't have this information. My guess is going to be that it is going to require some adjustment in funding past we're not going to get it right on day one. I'm going to guess that there's going to be some adjustment in funding after the initial inception of the program. But that initial inception, there's going to be a lot of fighting over the funding for that. And universality is going to drive up the cost a little bit. Like, that's just a fact. So, I mean, like,
okay, well, there's two things about cost. Like, the first thing about cost is the per person. Like paying for someone's healthcare in Canada, I think the last numbers I saw, and I haven't looked at this for a couple of years, so it might have gone up a little bit, was $4,800 per person, right? For a single payer. In America, we spend $9,800 per capita. So by being a single payer system, they have squeezed more efficiencies out of the system, and so they pay half as much. So for the same money, they can cover 2 people. And so what I'm saying is that the single payer, I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders thing is going to instantaneously make us $4,800 per person, but it will have some savings that take place. And you rightly say, a lot of worthless insurance bureaucracy is going to die. Good fucking riddance. But
but be careful. Like, just because the money right now exists, the money does exist in the United States for single payer. As you rightfully said, we spend more than every other country in the world, I think, on healthcare. We definitely spend more than people with even single payer systems on healthcare. But that doesn't mean that the U.S. government is collecting that right now in tax receipts.
But that's why we have to do it. That has to be part of it. You're right.
I know it has to be part of it, but that's going to be a fight. You know,
of course it'll be a fight. Of course it'll be a fight. But we've got to persuade people that it's a fight worth having, right? We can't and this is why we're having this debate, because you think, Mike, you want to have this bloody fight, and it's just marginally better than what I want, and my fight won't be as bloody. And here's what I believe. I believe that your fight would be just as bloody for an inferior system, and maybe you don't recognize it, and you have a disagreement about how bloody it would be. But I think the insurance companies they're run by smart people. They're evil, worthless scumbags, but they are run by smart people. And they see the same thing you do, which is that if a public option came in and we remove those tax subsidies from private insurance and employer-provided healthcare, that those systems would be untenable. And so it's just as much of an existential threat to do a public option and remove those subsidies as it is to just do an orderly transition. And the difference between the two is you're maintaining those insurance companies longer.
I understand what you're saying. I don't, but it's so hard I don't know how I can make this argument. Like, it seems like for the ACA, that passing the ACA without the public option was easier than passing the ACA with the public option, right? That public option before that was going to be passing the ACA died in the Senate because of Lieberman or whatever.
This fucking meme. Okay. This fucking meme. So the reason why we didn't have a public option is, and I'm quoting, and I don't have it at my fingertips because
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, pain in the ass to find out. Was that there were 55 votes for the public option? Okay, in the Senate.
Okay,
and that God, what was the majority leader at the time? Who was he? He was from Nevada. I'm blanking on the name.
Harry Reid.
Harry Reid. Yeah.
Yep.
Harry Reid was surprised that the bill that came out of the House was without the public option. And they expected there to be a fight. But one thing that people need to keep in mind about Obamacare was it was passed with 59 votes in reconciliation. And they passed it in reconciliation because Ted Kennedy died, and there was a special election, and a Republican by the name of Scott Brown won. And so the Democrats lost their filibuster-proof majority. And there were 4 blue dog Dems, one of which was Joe Lieberman, who were against the public option because they're scumbag pieces of shit who are funded by the insurance companies. And I believe Joe Lieberman has literally gone on to work as a lobbyist for the insurance company.
Okay.
That's literally a fact. Okay? And so why didn't we do the public option?
We can give a reason why it didn't pass. I'm just saying it seems like the version without the public option passed, and the version that had the public option.
What I'm saying is because there was a lack of political will, because there was a lack of organization, there was a lack of outside pressure, there was a lack of knowledge.
Maybe there'll be a lack of political will for a single payer versus a multi-payer.
Well, no, you're right. That's true, but Bernie Sanders is making this making it his plan.
Bernie Sanders isn't the Senate. He's not the guy from fucking Star Wars.
Of course not. You're right. You're fucking right. It's going to be a political fight. We have to make sure that every single Democratic senator fears for their job if they fight this. And I'm not saying it's going to happen necessarily. or in 2021. And you know what? Say we barely get the Senate back, which is probably the most optimistic outcome, right? Well, I think Bernie Sanders is the one that understands we need structural reforms, which means he's going to do stuff like have a 21st century voting rights act, right? Where we give everybody the right to vote back, where we have universal vote by mail, vote with paper ballots. We do automatic voter registration. We do we get senators for DC and Puerto Rico if we can. We try to change the game, and we do card check for unions.
Yep.
So
every single one of these things are going to be fought like crazy along the way.
Of course they'll be fought, but I do think that even centrist Democrats, a lot of these things are doable, and they're part of building a power base that we can carry forward. And you know what? I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders is necessarily going to be able to get everything done by waving a magic wand. I'm a fucking bloodied warrior. I know how hard this is. But what I'm saying is we should fight to win, and the insurance companies are objectively bad, and they are an enemy of progress, and if we can finally slay them, we should be arguing to slay them rather than being scared of a fight that they're going to do anyway. They're going to fight your public option, Destiny, just as hard as they fight
I'm sure they will. I don't know if I would go as
far. So why not try to kill them?
If we're getting real lefty in here.
Okay, I told you I was a lefty. Like, I'm not hiding it. I'm just saying. Like,
yeah, I know.
The reason why we get bad outcomes in this country, and see if you disagree, is because the structures are fucked up. It's not because it's because that's why we get the bad outcomes. It's not personal foibles. Like, we don't have more shootings in America because Americans are
I agree. There's not like
ill.
Americans aren't like too stupid to go to the hospital. There seems to be some structural incapability of the current American system to deliver healthcare to its citizens compared to other OECD countries. Yeah,
and
of course.
It's not just that. It's like horrible for all sorts of distributive reasons. It causes bankruptcies. It causes job lock. It causes a million, like, people don't start businesses that they might do because their wife has some sort of condition or their kid, so they're dependent upon this insurance company. So we don't know all the lost productivity. Have school districts and local governments that have to spend money on their own healthcare plans as opposed to like doing what they're supposed to do, like pave roads or buy books for the kids. They're spending money on stupid fucking unions are having to negotiate to keep their contracts so they can get more contributions for healthcare, so they're not fighting for higher wages. And down the line, many of our social ills are directly related back to this ridiculous for-profit insurance system, which has no benefits.
There's a lot of political stuff that's loaded in there. I don't know if I want to go through.
But what's wrong with it? Tell me what's wrong objectively. I know I packed a lot in there.
The problem is
because I think we have a consensus. Hold on. We have consensus on everything I said, right?
Not for everything you just said. No, I don't think that companies are
tell me what you
stand in the way of progress. Well, I don't. It seems like the alternative system that you present are always infinitely funded, always have infinite resources, always have the infinite ability to deliver care. That's not true. There are problems with free education or free healthcare in other parts of the world. There are waiting lines in countries like Sweden. It takes a long fucking time for some.
There are waiting lines here, but you know what happens at the end of the wait? You fucking die. As opposed to getting it.
There are no waiting lines in America for me because I can pay for whatever the fuck I want, okay? So that is not true.
Well, you think that, but if you got some difficult brain cancer tomorrow, even if you have millions, I don't know how much you have, and I'm not asking, you might get bankrupted.
Okay, listen, all right?
I'm
on my way to developing brain cancer if I do this internet politics thing for much longer. But
okay, you're saying that I'm okay. Come on.
No, I didn't say you were doing it. I didn't say don't ad hom me. Don't strawman me. Okay, no, listen. Okay, hold on.
Just because you met somebody who can actually debate.
we would have to go through like whole like ideas of like economic organization. I don't necessarily disagree right now. I would be crazy to disagree that the rent-seeking behavior and that the economic structures right now of insurance companies in the United States probably reduces health outcomes, or almost certainly reduces our healthcare outcomes in the United States. I think I would definitely agree with that. That doesn't mean I think health insurance companies are evil or always stand in the way of progress or are horrible things that should never exist.
Okay.
I just think
those are rhetorical flourishes. But what I mean by what I mean. But what's wrong with that? You got to persuade, my dude, and that requires some rhetorical flourishes. So when I say that insurance companies are evil, what I mean is that they are amoral, profit-making enterprises.
Sure, everything in an economy is amoral, though, right? But healthcare companies seem to exist in other countries, as you've admitted, with regulations, of course. Healthcare companies seem to exist in other countries and seem to do an effective job in multi-payer systems as well. Sure.
Me admitting that multi-payer systems exist and do decently better than ours is not some sort of huge concession.
Okay, well, then what do we disagree on?
Well, because they annihilated for-profit insurance in those multi-payer systems. They have non-profit, basically extensions of the state that dictate what the policies can and cannot cover. and they give a very small.
And we even did that a little bit with the ACA, where we dictated,
but would the insurance companies allow the same structural barriers that we face for single payer, which I think you agree is better than what the multi-payer models in a lot of ways.
I don't know if I agree that single payer is better than multi-payer. I've seen like the outcomes are similar and that both systems have their strengths. And
single payer is more efficient with money.
I don't know if that's. I haven't looked at that. I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay, well, based on my knowledge,
okay,
they tend to be more efficient, and they tend to have good outcomes. And you know what? Like, again, as I said earlier, if I could wave a magic wand and have the German healthcare system, I probably would, or the French system. You know, France, I think, has 3 major payers, and they are super heavily regulated, and I think they're nonprofits. I'm not French, so I can't have encyclopedic knowledge about every system. But what I do know is, if you were designing a system, which is what we're talking about doing, we're talking about, Mike, what should the system that you design, if you had the ability to persuade people to do, what would you do? I'm telling you what I think we should do. Now, if we get into the political arena, Destiny, and like we're out there in the House, and it looks like, you know, a strong public option is the only thing that's going to make it through, Bernie Sanders will do it.
Sure.
He's not going to give up.
I don't think I necessarily disagree with any of that. That if in a vacuum, if we were designing the perfect healthcare system, I mean, the most efficient structure is almost always going to be a monopoly, something that doesn't have any competition from any other structure, with like actual like price controls on it. That would be like my guess. So single payer would probably be the most efficient thing in a vacuum. I would agree. I just for like the American electorate, like
and by vacuum, you mean empirically based on the data that we see.
No. I'm sorry. When I say design in a vacuum, I mean designed without any regard for like electability or passability or what the American public thinks about. Like what is the most perfect system we could ever possibly design, like on paper, like is what I mean, right? Sure.
Yeah.
That it might be single payer.
I think the main point of our disagreement is it's the realm of what's the political horizon, right?
Sure.
And like you rightfully understand, Mike, we have this shitty system and no one's ever fixed it. Aren't you being a little bit naive thinking that we have this ability to do this political horizon?
Yeah, to make the most extreme healthcare system in the world.
It's not the most extreme, it's the best.
I think it is. Well, I think Bernie's plan would be the most extreme healthcare single-payer system in the world.
The most extremely best.
Okay. Listen, I love you, and I've had to go for like 30 minutes. I'm going to die.
No, sorry. We will do this again, I'm sure. I hope.
Okay. If there's ever any major shit that comes out that you want to chat about or whatever, just hit me up. Or if you want to talk after like the next round of debates or whatever, I think it'd be really interesting to get your take afterwards.
All right,
I don't know if
I can do it. We can do that. And
okay, sure.
All right, man. Love you.
All right, I really appreciate the conversation, my dude. What's your Twitch chat, or what's like your main thing you want to promote?
Why don't you go to my Twitch channel, guys? Twitch.tv/Central Committee. I think we've gotten about 800 follows from my starting point of 90. So
good job.
We've done okay. I also have a podcast that I do with my friend called In Too Deep, and he's more of like a hardcore socialist, and I'm more kind of leaning towards the suck democratic socialist. So I would go there, follow it.
Socked up with all the tanky iconography, yeah. But go ahead.
But here's the thing. I want to reclaim that shit. Like I'm not fronting, man. Like I think we should have labor solidarity. I believe that we should demagogue the rich. Like I'm fine with, but that's rhetorical stuff. You know, that's fun for me. And
gotcha.
We get for you might have a different aesthetic, which is fine, dude. Like we all have our yums and we all have our yucks. That's my yum. It could be your yuck. It's not. It has no bearing on the substance of what I'm saying, and I would not back down from anything I've said today.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, and if I've been inconsistent, I'm a human. Like sometimes that happens and you fuck up.
I'm taking back symbols too. Okay. This is the new omni-liberalism flag that we're gonna be flying, guys. Okay. We're taking it back. All right, guys. But yeah, I understand. All right. Listen, I really appreciate the conversation, my dude. Okay.
All right, dude. Have a good one. And
right.
Chat, who won? Chat, who won?
Yep.
Who won the debate?
No,
I'm just fucking with you.
Have fun. See you later, buddy.
All right, see you, bud. All right, guys.